some reason, it is impossible seemingly for them to admit it.
Hello, everyone. We definitely didn't realize something was amiss 1 second late.
Yep.
Sorry about this one.
Did the big pog move of forgetting to plug the laptop in.
Yep. Hello.
Very smart. Very smart. And I'm actually on the wrong page because this is a video that we're currently making.
Nice.
So let's get off that
Sorry,
page.
They can't see this anyway.
Oh, really? It's
Hello,
working.
everyone.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, we've got a fun show.
Yeah, it's got a fun show. I mean,
Mage Tower returning? Question mark.
That is the question mark. There's also an exclamation mark there, making the character itself an interrobang is apparently what it's called when you have those two together. Something something we use all the time. But
Interrotassador?
Yeah, Interrotassador, that's what it is. So, hello everyone.
Yes, right. So, turns out Blizzard are developing a patch for World of Warcraft.
Have they? God.
Yeah, quite shocking. And I've actually dribbled this down myself.
Camera was definitely on you for that, so that's good.
Great.
Yep.
Right, I suppose I'll just have a stain for a million views worth of clips, and that'll be very embarrassing. Ah, great.
Wouldn't be the first time.
But yeah, we've got some pretty cool news. There's more stuff coming out from the PTR. We're going to dive into what has happened in today's stream. Could even be Mage Tower, because there is new shit that references the Mage Tower.
Yep, they've... I mean, obviously this is kind of a spoiler for the rest of the stream, but to really run it down quickly, there's a bunch of teleport spells that have been fiddled around and added to the game, which are teleports to the actual like scenarios that the Mage Tower are. Yeah. And then also there was I think it was a... Now, well, I mean, I could just check, but either a 45 or 55% nerf to the scaling of Mage Tower stuff, and then the other was for the Legion TImewalking stuff. So we have no confirmation what they're doing, but they are certainly fiddling with it.
Yeah, okay, so there seems to be drumming going on outside.
1 second, I'll solve that.
Yes. Sometimes when you're in Northern Ireland and it's in and around the summer, yes, drums and flutes will suddenly happen and ruin your day and give you a headache. It's one of the incredible things about living in this fine country, which we do love so very dearly. But, yeah. Oh, hey, Jared and Andrew, thanks for joining as members.
Hello.
So, let's get into the patch 9.1.5 news. This is a sort of thing where, honestly, this is all good shit. It is just that thing where it's, I think, harder for people to feel excited about stuff that usually would be exciting because, well, I mean, we've been fiddled about with for so long by Blizzard, right? It's kind of funny. They finally do the patch where it seems like they've listened, and people are generally like, yeah, well, too little, too late. Sorry, you've already pissed me off too much, which I hope is a lesson that they learn. Very much so. Yeah.
I mean, there's so much to learn. Like, World of Warcraft, it was already, in the first couple of years of its life, it was already an incredible case study in success in an MMOs. And it keeps being this, like, if you were to teach about one video game, if you were, teaching about, like, if you were speaking to, like, producers or directors or people involved in the video game industry, like, how to run a game, I feel like you could teach them about World of Warcraft, and you wouldn't have to teach about anything else. Because it's covered everything. And the current arc is they have now destroyed any faith that the players have in the people and are scrambling desperately to get it back. So it's like that's the current arc they're on, but it's happened over such a timescale where, if, like the first time it happened, Legion came and everyone was immediately like, we'll forgive your transgressions. We had no Shatrath raid, we had no, what's the island called? Farallon?
Farallon.
There's no Farallon, but you've delivered us Legion, so we're okay with that. But this time, they've taken it a step too far in the sort of mistreatment of players, you could probably characterize it as fairly.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. And now
I mean, come on, like
it's not working.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, and a number of, like a few WoW devs have certainly done their team no favors.
Yeah.
In in the sort of thing where it's like they're totally, obviously valid to have their own opinion on their own social media account, but then strategically, I mean, come on, you all know what people associate with you with. If you only want to, do game dev chat with your game dev friends, just lock your account and do that. But certainly, yeah. There's a few tweets, I think, in mind, something to do with people being sociopaths for, a certain form of criticism. You're like, oh my god, what is in the friggin' water supply over there? Yeah, it's like that stuff I think has happened so much that the public discourse has, what has happened, which has certainly been interesting. I think some of it's like a tad excessive, but at the same point, it is that thing where they've messed us around for so long, very much flagrantly against the feedback they've got in their PTRs and in their beta tests. It's the sort of thing where it's like, if all of these things just shipped the way they did, like the shitty way they did, it actually would probably be better for Blizzard, because at least there wouldn't be a proven track record of the community almost wholesale having better ideas than they did, and telling them that, the stuff they're launching is basically a bit of a disaster, and then the community is basically always proven right whenever they say that. It's just such a funny situation. And I think what it's led to is a lot of understandable cynicism, because now there's a lot of people who are saying, at best, they are begrudgingly doing what players want because they don't have any other choice, because they can't let WoW just, completely go to the shitter. And then some other people think that at worst, this is all planned. That 9.0 or 9.1 even was supposed to be the way that it was, so that then they could do this stuff in 9.1.5, and, then, oh, wow, the people be... I don't really think it's that, because that's a really stupid way to make a game. Now, if it is the sort of thing where there's a bunch of these systems where they are actually happy with their launch balancing, and they think the 9.1.5 is just a mid-season catch-up, then it's like, holy shit, you guys have literally no idea what you're doing. I kind of doubt it's that, actually. I do think it is a case of they were a bit caught off guard, I suppose, with patch 9.1.
Yeah, it's really hard to know what motive they have for doing everything they do. So I always like to try to internalize it as they're doing their best, but then you have to think, well, why is their best 9.1?
Yeah.
And then you have to think, well, because you could run through all of the logistical reasons. You could look at the launch of Shadowlands being delayed and go, well, COVID, delays. Where's all the content? Delays. Content is the hardest thing to do. But then you look at system stuff like this and go, you mean you could have done this?
That's the bit that gets me. 100%. Like with Conduit Energy. One of the things they hotfix that so that it regenerates 10 a day or something. They could have literally done that at any time. And then you've got the balance of lots of specific systems and a bunch of rules where, you can't tell me that the Corthian armaments only being, a totally random token for any slot like it shipped in 9.1, you can't tell me that was, a logistical problem. That making all of the different tokens was too much work. Because frankly, if that's too much work, then... you're screwed and you just can't make the game good, and that's that. So that is clearly what they actually thought was, making sense, right? So I guess the thing where I think myself and a bunch of other players are losing some faith is that it's not really the production-intensive things that are disappointing, the things that really are hurt by a big delay. It's the things where the quantity of time that it would take to actually do the thing is pretty much the same or similar. But it's just, do you do it this way or that way? Do you tune it this way or that way? Should this number be like this or like that? Where, yeah, it's like you made the wrong choice, and, maybe we lose some faith in them because that choice was made. And I think that's, especially as you approach a lot of the 9.1 launch systems, that's the situation, like the Corthian armaments. Why were they not like the benthic gear? Why? Can I please have an explanation? Why did you choose to make it just be one? What was the thinking? because it's very hard for somebody to say that there's a pro player like design reason for it being one single token. Now in this patch 9.1.5 they're going to split it out into per slot tokens. We'll get into that later, but it's like why was it not like that at launch? Like I do want an explanation. I know this is almost like, I'm the friggin' teacher putting a bad note in their homework diary and making them, write "I'm sorry" on the whiteboard. But that is basically the sort of place that I'm at, because some of those launch decisions for 9.1 are just so baffling. They're so baffling from the perspective of liking your player base and wanting your game to have basic usability be in a good place and respect people's time. So I think that's a lot of the reason why people are just so jaded to this. It's like, oh yeah, great. Okay, this is, now those armored... I bring up the armored tokens, by the way, because it's almost like the corruption rotation vendor, or just that situation where it's like, it's just such a silly design. But yeah, people are like, how are they going to have faith when it came out that way? And we have no explanation as to why it came out that way and why it's changed now. And even if they say, oh yeah, we listened to player feedback and we decided that, yeah, it is better if it's split out per slot, I then say back to them, it's like, well, you've actually done it per slot multiple patches. Why did you change it? Could you please explain to me why you changed it? I want to understand the design insight. And I think it's that, because, whatever explanation they would have there would basically just be an admission of being very silly about how they design a part of the game. And that's not something they're ever going to be willing to do because, PR and shit. But it's like, how can people have faith when, it's that thing. Patch 9.1.5 should not at all be the way that it is. Patch 9.1.5 should be bringing us a little bit of content and more interesting systemy things. Right now, 9.1.5 is fixing 9.1. It's advancing the game by fixing its problems. It's not advancing the game by actually doing new cool stuff that people could potentially be excited about. And that is different to the 0.5 patches of, say, Legion at times. And I think that's why there is, I think, a decently large apathy in the WoW community, where I think people can almost universally agree that the changes we're going to be going through, or well, say that we went through in the last stream, that we're going through in today's stream, everyone can agree they're good. So then why is the reaction the way that it is? And I think it's just apathy and pattern recognition.
That's the big one, because pattern recognition, that is, because there's it was in that video, a message to the World of Warcraft team, that I had something written. I can't remember if it made it into the finished version, but it was about, them never acknowledging a problem until it's no longer a relevant problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the thing here, where this is the 9.1.5 to end. This is the 0.5 patch to end all 0.5 patches under their new idea of what a 0.5 patch is.
Yeah, and that's actually...
Yeah, like
they changed the goalpost and what a 0.5 patch is.
Yeah, so what this is doing is this is nuking like the vast majority of problems people have with the game. But all that means is that once this comes out, once this patch is live and, people can't complain about, Torghast Soul Cinder stuff anymore, they can't complain about conduit energy, they can't complain about Corthian armaments. They're basically, you can look at it as, here's the easy way to get wins. Here's the way to make our players happy.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also look at it from the perspective of, here's how to get players to shut up. Here's how to get them to stop complaining about these problems that are, conceivedly small. Because as soon as 9.1.5 is out, the number of things you can complain about that everyone will rally behind drops substantially.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you start to complain about things, you're no longer as united behind a banner of, there's no pull the ripcord, because that was, a sort of a vague attempt at branding a big change that the community were involved in, and it worked out fairly well, and now they've done it. So what comes next feedback-wise from the community?
Calendar year too late.
Of course, yeah, but what comes next for the community? Is it going to be another unified message behind another thing that they want to see different, or is it going to be a massive variety of voices asking for different things that might even conflict at times, and then they're off the hook for everything because the feedback's too noisy? Not to say that this is like their intent, But in terms of the actual effect of it, it's like this solves a lot of problems, but now that those problems are solved, you'll have the community, you know, after this, I imagine you'll have the community infighting again over what's conceived a problem. And then the game won't get substantially better because that's kind of lost.
I think I know what the community might rally behind. And I mean, look, we're definitely going to play a part in this.
Yeah.
Coming home. Wanting Azeroth again, wanting Warcraft again. Because right now the current dev team, and I say the current dev team just to, you know, delineate that even the current dev team is actually, in terms of turnover rate and stuff, pretty different from the Legion dev team. And that's a pretty different team from the MOP team, and, you know, going back and back and back. The current dev team don't seem to have an interest in core Warcraft as much, right? They do seem to be a lot more interested in the cosmic elements, the sci-fi elements. I saw it was one of the really good threads by Magdalena on Twitter. Actually about the whole, like, on the fractals and all the crazy stuff and the multiple forces, and that actually being very similar to a fantasy series that is penned by one of the guys who contributed to Folk and Fairy Tales. But it's just interesting. It's that thing where, like, you know, they're talking about the fractals. They're talking about the seventh force. I really don't think that players give a flying fuck about most of the new ways they're pushing the lore. It's like Night Elf players care about Night Elf stuff, and I guess a bit of Tyrande, but even with that, we've seen the Night Elf players feel pretty damn battered over the storylines that they've got. If you know, got into Warcraft because you saw, like, you know, the Grom sacrifice in Warcraft 3 and thought that was all really cool, or maybe you were, you know, you got into Warlords of Draenor because you saw, you know, big sweaty orc, lots of muscles, does a cool thing, does his big cry for freedom with his axe in the air. Like, that is quite simply not what Warcraft is really delivering as much anymore. It's in this weird thing where Warcraft, it's like, it's getting modern edgy, modern soft, and very cosmic and complicated. And I really think that the core fan base of Warcraft isn't super into those things. So I actually think what's going to happen is you're going to have that big clatter of voices, as you said. Definitely. But from what I've seen, I think they will begin to coalesce with, okay, the systems are fighting with us less. Now what we want to talk about is content. And I think people will want the setting of Warcraft to actually be Warcraft, and, you know, not us going and flying into the fractals or any crazy stuff that they might think is a good idea, and it seriously don't. They're going to want to go back in terms of setting and have Warcraft be Warcraft. I think that's one thing that is... I'm not going to say it's 100% consensus, of course, but I think it's decently surefire. So there's that, and then people start to talk about content, because a lot of people have been playing FF14, and they've seen that in terms of how they can just tell a story in a game, completely blows the socks off WoW. Yes, A Realm Reborn does have its issues, obviously, but, you know, you go into the later stuff, you know, that I've seen in that game, because there was a bunch of Stormblood cinematics and stuff. That is actually before I played FF, but there's a bunch of Stormblood cutscenes and things that you showed me just to say, like, well, here's what's going on at the other side.
Yeah. And
it totally... I mean, there's even parts of A Realm Reborn that, in terms of, like, you being a character and them telling a story, like, ARR in certain places blows the socks off WoW. And that's saying nothing for Heavensward and beyond. So people are going to start making those comparisons. And then they're going to think about some of the player freedoms that they might be used to in Guild Wars 2. Maybe how mounts are way more cool than they are in WoW in Guild Wars 2. They're going to start thinking about these other MMOs. They're going to start thinking about content. And I think what we're going to realize is that, you know, yeah, we got the 3 pillars of PvP, M+, and raiding. But when WoW was at its most successful, there's some other things going on. Like, leveling was a far larger part of the journey. Getting your mount was a far larger part of the journey. Having unique, cool mounts you've never really seen before, and like a type of creature you've never seen before, was way more of a thing in those early days. And now we're in a situation where we can't really have any of those things, because we're on Mount 500 and something, or whatever it might be. And all of that. So people are going to start wanting new cool things. So I think a return to Azeroth is what they want. And then also, instead of the new expansion saying, hey, here's a big build around feature, here's a new borrowed power feature, I think what people actually just are going to want is new ideas, more content, better content, new things to do. And I think it's just that thing that, you could say that Warfronts and Island Expeditions fit into that. The problem is that both of those had severe and very basic, by the way, game design issues.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. Like, Islands, when they were way harder, 1 or 2 points in beta were like kind of fun to knock around in. But then it's how they tied the islands into the reward loop. Like what they did with Torghast, funny enough. They made the same mistake again. Yeah, so we need like cool new features that people actually get really excited about, again, that are not features that fall into the usual Blizzard Entertainment pitfalls.
Yeah. I mean, I've actually got, obviously the thing to do is talk about, what content looks like in a way that isn't just reward loop stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that, because it does fit into the reward loop, but I'm thinking of the Bajan Southern Front in FF, where, because you were talking about, how you can't just go get a mount anymore. There's no meaningful journey for you to go and get in World of Warcraft in that sense, right?
You were referring more to how a lot of mounts are like Paragon box grinds where it's just random rares and stuff.
Yeah, so there's a couple different things. Because Islands and Warfronts were kind of okay in their conception, execution a bit awful, but the reason people really didn't like them was because they were tied into all of the current systems and stuff. But like, to use the Bajan Southern Front as an idea, where it is, here is a place where there's, the FF equivalent of world quests, it's got the FF equivalent of world bosses, it's got the FF equivalent of a dungeon at the end. But it's a different area that you progress in at your own time, at your own leisure. Sure, you can get some gear there, but it's like an alternative path that is like generally a bit slower. Well, depends on what part you are, but generally a bit slower than, gearing traditionally. So it's this little self-contained thing that you didn't really have to interact with if you wanted to do other parts of the game, but it was there, it was content. And it wasn't just like a Suramar, where Suramar is just pure quests. Suramar was just like primarily, story quests.
Yeah.
Get some mana. That was it. But like, there's a version of the Maw, for example, where you didn't go into the Maw every week to do all this stuff that resulted in player power. But you went into the Maw and you went in there whenever you wanted, but you had a progression system there that was completely unique to that. You maybe unlocked the ability to mount it the same way you unlocked the ability to go to the Beast Warrens and stuff like that over time. There's a world where that content is just, hello, we have carved out a big swathe of content that feels like a small world inside World of Warcraft, which, I mean, it's going to be counter to what people want and expect out of the World of Warcraft, where initially the pillars of endgame were all blended quite well. But I think we've completely jumped that shark. There's no going back to what vanilla feels like, especially not with classic, because they'll just go, well, that market's sort of covered. But a version of that actually works with today's game is to have your end game content hub, where you've got your rating, you've got your M+, you've got your PvP, but then you also have a more traditional World of Warcraft like experience, where maybe there's a zone that you can't mount in initially, you can't fly in initially, maybe you never can fly, but you aren't going there for a reason outside of a well-paced like progression up through for cosmetics and for power within that zone.
I think then the issue you run into is there's some who would say that Korthia does that, and that Korthia does have an alternate gearing system, and it does have its own little progression path, things like that. But then that's when we get into the very nuts and bolts basics of game design.
Yeah.
Where the Korthia gameplay loop, realistically, how it's actually played by people who would properly engage with the system, it is stand in middle, wait for tomcats or whatever add-on you have to glow red in the map, go to the rare, kill the rare, go back to the middle of the map, because if you're not in the middle of the map, then your travel times won't be optimal. And then it's that thing where it's like, it's not really fun. Now it's that thing, Korthia is full of parts that I like, because some of the rares are like a little bit of a break in pace, a little bit new and different, but it still all amounts to the same, stand in the middle of the zone, wait, go do a thing. It's like not a gameplay style where you actually go out and do things. You react to a UI prompt. You basically don't experience much gameplay. You get a random reward. You go back to the middle. There's not much of a progression there. And then the zone itself, it has its own story early on, but then it just gets thrown into the campaign. So it's not like you've got a lot of progression like feels good in Korthia. And it's really funny because this is all stuff they've done way better in the past.
Yeah, I mean, Timeless Isle is a pretty decent example of that to an extent.
Yeah, even before that, throwing the Isle of Thunder, right? It's weird that what's basically happened is that Timeless Isle worked, and then Blizzard have basically iterated on the same idea of the Timeless Isle, just again and again and again and again since. They haven't actually tried to do a big cool new thing that much.
Yeah, they've amped up engagement with their Timeless Isle ideas, and sometimes been successful, with Mechagon and Najatar being okay, being better in some ways, worse in others. But then Korthia feels like they learned none of those lessons whatsoever. Yeah,
I guess you see Korthia and then you just get quite confused about how it's just that thing. In Korthia, I can see the passion of the individual designers.
Yeah,
but I do see an overall architecting of that gameplay experience that leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah.
So it's as if the team lead really didn't understand how to make a fun zone, but all the people on the team really tried their best on all of the parts.
That's what it feels like, yeah.
So I think it's like a lot of these things, it's that thing. The system stuff's really important because when the systems are wrong, it messes up the core game experience. However, to solely focus just on systems is just to look at a red herring, because I think that systems truly are a red herring, and one of the real issues is content. And I think the expansion that proves that's Legion, because Legion was rife with systems issues. Like I remember, throughout the Legion beta process, I think Preach as well, kind of railed on a good few of the systems. Like the legendary acquisition was one thing. Legion was a decently fictitious launch experience in some bizarre ways versus, how Legion ended up being by the end. But people generally fought through all of those problems because it turned out there was a lot of content to do.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have the perfect anecdote for why that actually mattered to the player experience. And my memory is a little hazy because this was, a number of years ago. But I'm pretty sure I got one of the best legendaries. I think, was it I don't think it was the best one for prop. I think it was the best ret legendary. I got it second, but I got it from the chest at the end of the Withered Training scenario, because the way they said legendaries can drop from anything. So if you're just going doing stuff, you can get a legendary. You don't need to go and do specific content for it. You don't need to go and do, specific content for a chance. It was just engage in the many things that are on this world to do, and you'll get some form of reward for it. And I remember getting the legendary from that chest, which means I personally didn't care about that system being bad. Because, to be fair, I got lucky, but also I got it when I was doing content.
Yeah.
That was just not there any other time in the game. It's just, there was so much stuff to do that it never bothered me, it never occurred to me. And I guess some of that is likely down to fatigue from the same design, where they've reused the kind of Legion, the world's full of rares and map stuff, or rares and treasures. They've kind of reused that a little bit, so I think some of it's lost its...
Oh, totally, 100%.
Lost how it feels to actually engage with, because it's no longer new, but also it was just that little thing of, you could get your legendary from a treasure. Even like the Lothian Prowler was kind of nice to get early because it was very different, very new. But then,
I would have rather worked to get my Lothian Prowler through some sort of wrap or something, but sure.
Yeah, but it's that idea of if they can get people to feel okay when they're playing the game and enjoy the game experience, then systems aren't quite as much a problem.
True.
But that's when the systems are the only thing. It's like we're only seeing the systems as a problem because there's nothing to hide them.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the hardest things to get across, as a wider community as well, to talk about, because so many people have different ideas for what content is good, what isn't good, and I think specifically in World of Warcraft, because so many players of World of Warcraft have only played World of Warcraft or only playing MMOs. Because, if you play an open world game that borrows heavily from MMO design, but is outside of the MMO market, it is astounding how much better it is in most ways, conceptually, than what World of Warcraft is, because it feels like it's out on this bubble, away from other games.
Yeah, that's a big issue for a while.
Along with a decent part of the community, which means it's so much progression that video games have gone through overall haven't happened there because they've been isolated. So actual content quality is really, really hard to talk about.
Yeah, and it's that thing where I think Blizzard they're maybe borrowing less from the competition than people felt they used to. I guess as we kind of loop this back to your original point, it's very easy for the community to rally behind these systems being a large problem in WoW. I think the next stage then is for the community to rally behind what do they want Warcraft to be? Do they want it to be this new form of Warcraft that is moving away from sort of traditional fantasy and is moving towards, I don't even know what to call it, because it's not like high fantasy, it's not low fantasy, it still is rooted in some of those older Warcraft aspects, but, you know, we're talking about the various forces and stuff emerging from the fractals and all of this stuff that I think players are not particularly enthused by, right? It's that thing, I guess, you over-explain the mystery and then, oh dear, what are you left with? So I think like that and then content, those are the things for the community to rally behind. And I think there will be a decent amount of agreement on that, to be honest. And what we should do, though, is we should go through the new patch 9.1.5 news that has transpired over the week, because it's generally all good stuff.
It certainly is.
So to kick it off with our first thing then, now this is something we're not really sure how these are going to be used. More tier 20 recolors are here in the patch 9.1.5 PTR clients. And like if you remember tier 20, it's a pretty damn popular one. Tier 20 of course was, I mean, for some specs that didn't exist, you know, way back in the past. It was just, you know, big, nice, brand new sets. But for loads, it was like the sort of nice HD version of some of just a really iconic tier that people loved a lot. I mean, hey, this green Demon Hunter is really cool. I really like that. And yeah, just as you go on, like these are all really nice. These are recolors. They are here in the patch files. We have absolutely no indication how these are going to be used. Now, I did try and sort of put two and two together, but there's a reason, somebody pointed out on Twitter, there's a reason why it doesn't make sense. I was thinking, with all those Mage Tower strings being data mined, is it going to be the sort of thing where you complete the Mage Tower and you get a tier 20 recolor? And that would allow you to do it once in every class. And it also would mean that Blizzard wouldn't, be sort of devaluing people's efforts during the Legion expansion, right?
Yep, just solving a technical issue, no problem.
Oh, anything that's impacting the stream?
Yes, no one can see anything you're talking about.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Okay, we'll do that section again.
Yep. Very sorry. My brain no working too well. This is what happens.
There we go.
This is what happens when you... well, sort of when you exist, to be honest.
Well, okay, so if everyone can see it, then I'll go ahead. So, Tier 20 recolors. Tier 20 recolors have appeared on the patch 9.1.5 PTR. Now, these tier recolors are pretty awesome. It's a really awesome tier. Of course, for the Death Knights and the Demon Hunters, Tier 20 was pretty new because they didn't exist in the Burning Crusade. Tier 20 broadly is a remaster of a Burning Crusade tier set. Which, you know, some people say, oh, it's a remaster, it's lazy bikes. I mean, it's an iconic set. Why not bring them up to modern standards, because they look great, and they certainly do. And it was interesting, just as we go through all of these, these remastered sets. The Hunter one, it's always been a bizarre set for the Hunters, that tier. I was thinking to myself, right, because there have been strings data mined in 9.1.5 that relate to the Mage Tower. Hey, this Paladin one, I mean, come on, some cool stuff. So I was thinking, right, because this stuff had been data mined, what if you complete the Mage Tower and you get this set? Seems to make sense. The Mage Tower would be pretty hard. This would be a pretty nice, prestigious set to get. But then, as pointed out on Twitter, I forget exactly who by, but it was a good point. There's 36 Mage Tower challenges. Only 12 sets. You probably could have got more out of it, right? So maybe it's not that. But at the same rate, well, those artifact appearances were kind of billed to players during Legion as being, unique for the Mage Tower. And it's not like we've data mined new artifact tints to get via a new Mage Tower, even though there's there's Mage Tower related strings in patch 9.1.5. Now, of course, that Warlock one's cool. It could just be some sort of artifact in the data mining or something. It's kind of hard to work it out.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like to talk about the idea of there being, so 36 challenges, 12 rewards. Also remember that if this is part of Legion TImewalking, then you have a pretty big problem. Because if that's active for 2 weeks, if you have unique and exclusive rewards for every class available for 2 weeks, and you drop it kind of, you drop it out of nowhere on players,
Yeah.
or within, even assuming that this is coming out in, early November, like the PTR suggests via the calendar. If this is the start of November, that will give people, depending on when they announce it, that'll give people who are clued in about 6 weeks to prep, which isn't really long enough to prep every class in a, depends on how they skill, but like in a decent set of gear for now. So I feel like 12 is probably enough for 36, because you wouldn't want to have people to do all 36 over the course of that. So I can imagine that, do it in one class, it's fine. Especially, one per class.
I guess it's like, of all the specs you've got, do it in one of them, you'll get the cool reward.
Yeah, I mean, because then you wouldn't have people also complain about not being able to prep another spec in time because it's Shadowlands and you can't play multiple specs without getting fiddled a little bit.
It'll be a bit nicer. 9.1.5 is out. Not that will really help people for prep.
Exactly. So it's a kind of thing where I can sort of defend this in a way. Also, I mean, they're nice sets.
This is all speculation. We literally don't know how you get these.
Yeah, of course, it's all speculation. I mean, was it Muffinus who teased something about where the sets would be available from in a way that we couldn't tell?
Right.
But I think it was in response to Wohead talking about as a reward for Legion TImewalking M+, and he gave like a smiley face or something. So they could be M+, they could be Mage Tower, who knows?
I suppose that could be another way of doing this. Maybe there is, complete all of the Legion TImewalking Mythic Plus to maybe a plus 15. You'll unlock the Mythic set.
Yeah.
For the character you're on. And I mean, that would be quite a climb to do and not that much time. So maybe that wouldn't exactly be how we do it. But something like that would certainly be motivating. I do think it would motivate me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, there you go, Blizz. That would work. So yeah, there's these. We're not really sure about them, but they certainly all look cool, and I think these are all rewards that players would enjoy earning. Now, speaking of earning rewards, the Mage Tower apparently came into existence because they had some cool rewards and didn't really know of a good enough challenge in game to really be worthy of those rewards, so they made the Mage Tower. That's kind of how Ian characterized it anyway in his interview with Preach. So the Mage Tower was a very well-regarded feature during Legion. I'm frustrated that it caught me at a time where I was guildless, and therefore, sort of the top progress wasn't really in the cards. And maybe that's part of why I'd be very excited about the idea of it coming back. Now, why do we say Mage Tower returning in 9.1.5? Question mark, exclamation mark. Well, question mark because there is reason to believe it could be, an exclamation mark because, damn, wouldn't that be pretty exciting? And this is basically what's happened. In the most recent round of data mining in the patch 9.1.5 PTR files, Wowhead have not only come across teleport spells that seemingly relate to the Mage Tower, but also have discovered that several Mage Tower spells have received tuning. Now, I just have to ask you, why would they tune these spells if this was not going to be part of Legion TImewalking? Right? I mean, I don't think that's an absurd way to think. This is clearly been fiddled about with. So here's the teleports spells to, the God Queen, Twisting Nether, Imp Mother's Den, Healing Scenario free, Jewel Boss Scenario free, and LFG Dungeon. So a few of these, of course, are teleport spells to, to the Mage Tower bosses.
Of course, and they would have to be new spells if they don't want to get people to go back to the Broken Shore, or if they want people to not have to farm nether shards for it. So that could be it.
Maybe.
Possibly.
Maybe.
I'm just saying
really
the way it
sure.
says free for those two. I'm like, because nether shards were a pretty annoying problem for the end of that.
Yeah, and then here's the other interesting thing. Spell tuning. According to Wowhead, a bunch of Mage Tower spells were nerfed by the same flat amount of 45% in the most recent 9.1.5 PTR build compared to the flat 55% tuning nerf that was applied to the Legion dungeon spells. Now, what I would say to you is, don't read that and think that they've scaled it up to max level and then half the difficulty such that it will be a cakewalk relative to Legion. It is likely that once you apply whatever their tuning algorithm is to this content, and I actually think there might be a good reason behind this, you apply whatever scale something from back then up to current level 60 content, and then maybe you find that this shit's all just way too hard, like basically impossible. And I think many of us remember the soloing experience of Legion content at the very start of Shadowlands, where during Shadowlands beta and initial Shadowlands launch, the scaling of, if you just wanted to go and farm out some Legion stuff for transmog, you would actually find that at the very start of Shadowlands, at least the memory serves, I'm 99% sure anyway, at the start of Shadowlands, it was harder than it was at the end of BFA. Because I remember doing that video, I think, in and around the end of BFA. Then I hopped in to see what it was like on Legion beta, and it was actually harder, even though I was 10 levels higher. And I think it was a little bit like that at live initially. Now, that could suggest that when you just do their regular form of scaling content difficulty up, that whenever you do that, it does not arrive at a number that is good for gameplay in Shadowlands, which could explain this. And another, I think, thing that would support that is, they did a flat 55% tuning nerf to the Legion dungeon spells. But those Legion Mythic Plus, well, wait, is that going to be Legion Mythic Plus or just Legion Normal? Because if that is for Legion Mythic Plus, then yeah, it would suggest it's a 55% tuning nerf down. But because those Mythic Plus dungeons are going to be contributing to the Great Vault, in terms of difficulty, they do have to roughly be in pace with the Shadowlands dungeons.
Yeah, I imagine it'll be rough based on design differences, but that'll absolutely be the intent. It's not going to be easy.
And that then would indeed suggest that a 45% nerf to these Mage Tower boss spells would be roughly in line of scaling that Legion content up to Shadowlands and then tuning it appropriately for Shadowlands endgame characters. And there's lots of reasons why those differences could happen. You've got to remember, we're not wearing 2 Legion Legos. Could you wear 2 Legion Legos when Mage Tower came out? Was that the patch they did that, or was it the follow-up patch? It was the follow-up. Yeah, okay, so, well, there's maybe the Legion Legos are a bit more powerful in some cases than the BFA ones, or the Shadowlands ones, not 100% sure. But also,
I believe they are.
Yeah, fairly sure. But you also, of course, had, at this point in time, concordance of Legion Fall, or whatever it was called, the end artifact trait that was on your artifact weapon that would eventually be responsible for a lot of people's damage. That came in patch 9 or 7.2. And, of course, you had all of your artifact traits, which, did those artifact traits end up being more player power than the equivalent Shadowlands systems? I don't have the numbers to hand, so I couldn't tell you, but it wouldn't feel wrong to say, at least experientially, right? Like, we all remember getting super powerful in Legion. So, all of these things suggest that there is tuning and stuff being done with the Mage Tower spells that is being picked up in this data mining. Why would they fiddle around with this unless they were trying to make it be a thing? Now, it's not been officially announced, and that probably means that they are not at a high enough level of confidence in this being a feature to announce, in this patch, that they can announce it right now. But maybe it will be the case that maybe after a few weeks they are able to get it right, then the Mage Tower comes back, and then people are pretty happy. So that's overall my read in the situation.
Yeah, well, the only things I'd have to add to that would be it would be extremely dangerous for them to push this through on the PTR and not comment on it.
Yeah.
If they weren't going to do this. Because this is the point where they should be absolutely, completely transparent. Like, they need to go... Well, okay. If they think the Mage Tower is coming back, or if they know they're going to do it, then it's fine to be quiet. But if they aren't sure, then they need to have a post out as soon as possible saying, we saw you guys noticed what we're doing. Here's transparency. We're trying to get this to work. If it doesn't, we'll do it later or figure it out. It may not be there in time. Sorry. Don't get your hopes up. But also there's a chance that they do fully intend on doing it, and that's why they let it slip to the PTR, but they aren't ready to announce it. Which brings us to a part of the conversation. It's a little bit... people will be split on both sides, I think. Especially based on reading chat at the minute. But
yeah, like chat split, and compared to our normal live streams, this one's like definitely got a higher ratio of dislikes.
Yep. So one of the most important parts of the Mage Tower was obviously the rewards. That's why it happened in the first place, apparently. But it's the artifact weapon appearances. So I personally think they're holding off to announce it until they know what they're doing there, because I think that's probably a pretty major concern. Because they can't bring back the artifact appearances as they were. are they maybe working on new artifact appearances? They won't fit into the Legion artifact appearance like UI window or anything, but they will, they could just make them available as separate transmogs. So they could be waiting to announce until they've got that. They could be waiting to announce until they've got all of the armor sets fully ready to go. But that leads us to a conversation of, should they bring back the artifact appearances as they were to bring people back?
Nope.
Nope.
No, they shouldn't. They said that those appearances were a time-limited thing, and they have to stick by that. That's it. I don't think there's any other option here. Now, maybe if they're going to add a new tint, not a new appearance, but a new tint of that appearance, they could maybe do that, and then you'd always know that if somebody had the original tint, that they did it at that point in time. But even that, some could argue, would cheapen it. So I'm not 100% sure what they should put in as the reward, but I very much think it should not be those artifact appearances again, because, like you say, it's time limited. Well, then it has to be time limited, and that's that. You can't mess those people around.
I'm in complete agreement, because I certainly put a lot of time and effort into that game, knowing that the Mage Tower appearances would be gone. So I ended up doing it on at least every class and multiple specs that I actually enjoyed at the time. So I think
that's what I want to work out, because like there's quite a bit of dissenting opinion in chat, and I think I don't think we clickbaited anybody, because this all suggests that the Mage Tower could be returning. That's exactly what's in our title. And very often, whenever the subject matter of a video, it's like kind of regardless of how we cover it, if the subject matter itself is divisive, then we do just get a bunch of dislikes. But I'm trying to work out why there is generally a decent amount more like dissenting opinion, dislikes, comments aren't really agreeing with the premise of the Mage Tower coming back and things like that. I kind of wonder, because on paper, you would have thought that would have been seen as nearly universal positive. I suppose I have to wonder, are people maybe seeing that as a, in case of emergency, break glass, and that maybe there's like an angle of cynicism, certainly one that I wouldn't blame people for, because Blizzard have sort of fostered that environment. I wonder. I guess I can just say, let us know, chat.
Yeah, it's interesting, because obviously there's people who want to bring this stuff back and so they can get it again. Which, I think is fair as a desire, but it was pretty apparent at the time that it wasn't there. Because, for where I fall on it personally, I think that, even within Legion, they kind of scuffed it by making it, the Mage Tower scaled with gear. Or sorry, what's the correct way to say is, your gear mattered. So
they did that on purpose.
Yeah, so when you came in later, it was substantially easier than people who had it earlier. Because I certainly could have got my prot appearance a little bit later instead of banging my head off it like an idiot at the time. But personally, I missed all of the challenge modes, and I love.
Oh, you mean the
gear.
mop challenge modes?
I love that gear.
Did that with my guild.
Yep.
I've got the 100 challenge mode appearance for mop, and we had such a blast. And it really was a very different thing to because in the mop challenge modes, if you're not aware, your character actually scaled down in power and stats to the challenge mode, rather than the mode scaling up to you. And that meant that, you've got early X-Pack haste values. Felt pretty different. It was, interesting thing. I'm glad I did it at the time, for sure.
Yeah, no, so I haven't got those appearances, but I understand that. I understood at the time. So, I don't know.
Yeah, you can get a recolor of those appearances.
Yeah.
Of course, that's the Order Hall gear.
Yeah, no, so I can understand people saying there's there's no place for FOMO, because that's what it is in a design sense. Good, this is only available now, so it is fairly difficult. I feel like maybe the best option overall is to design it in a way that is completely fixed on difficulty and always available, but exceedingly hard and solo. So maybe that's one way, kind of like how the ultimate titles are in the legend titles in FF, where you can do it anytime, but they are going to be exceedingly difficult. So they've got prestige, but without the FOMO element. Maybe that's kind of it. So maybe it's I guess it's difficult. They made a decision. People are going to naturally be split on it, and it is genuinely I kind of just want to talk about it to say it is a genuinely hard discussion. There are valid points on all sides of it, but I think the thing for Blizzard to do that's correct by most players is to honor the original statement they made.
Oh, but they just have to do that. So it's interesting. I would have thought this would have been a free win.
Yeah.
I have to wonder if a lot of the people who seem to be not very happy at all at the idea of this, are maybe just expecting that the artifact appearances will be the reward and therefore feel hard done by that, which I would agree with.
Yeah.
Like, there shouldn't be that. So, yeah, I don't know. I think this is basically a free win. Just don't, trample on people's past efforts by having the same reward. That would be unfair. Hopefully it makes it in my opinion. I think that this would be another thing to do, and that's what WoW sorely needs. A bunch of people didn't see all of these. They maybe are playing a different class to whenever Legion came out. If you're doing Legion TImewalking, it kind of makes sense to keep this be relevant anyway, so I don't really see the downside as long as they don't mess up with people's past investment. So there you go. That's that. There are more things happening, though. So, High Mountain Tauren, they are in fact getting some additional customization options in this patch. So, there you go. It's just that thing of... for many of the game's allied races, they were cool and new when they came out. They often cases didn't come out with a massive amount of customization options, but they did have cool new ones. Yeah. But then when the base races got updated, well, some of the allied races just didn't really feel as good anymore. Yeah, they were both Lightforge players. We felt that.
I felt so hard done by,
Yeah, so there you go. And then in terms of customizations, you got fur color, horn styles, accessories, colors, hairstyles, sideburns, hair decorations, beards, headdresses, necklaces, piercings, facial jewelry, tail style, and tail accessories. Then, for the Lightforged Draenei, I think there's pretty big news for us. Maybe, it might not be news, but there is a Talbot mount that is very much Lightforged Draenei themed. This has been data mined. We do not 100% know what this is, but I mean, compare it to the Heritage Armor appearance of the Lightforged Draenei, and it's the same thing. Yeah. So, I don't know how we're going to get this, but I imagine we'll get it. I guess, actually, is that just like their Paladin mount in the way? Isn't it? If you're a Dark Iron Dwarf Paladin, you get their pretty freaking cool looking mount.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep. I just have one problem.
Oh?
It won't fly. Why? Why are you giving us mounts that don't fly? We can fly.
Oh, are you? Yeah, so you're advocating for like the FF rules where just everything can fly. That's that.
I would advocate for those, but in this specific instance, I would just be advocating for give me something that can fly. Because I kind of like the separation, but it doesn't thematically. Because just saying a wolf fly would be a bit. I guess. I mean, it works fine in FF, so reasonably it would work fine here. But I'm just kind of annoyed that I won't be able to use this. Because most places I go in the game, I fly. So, I'm happy I've got mounts that I like, but won't be able to use that one in any reasonable sense.
I suppose that is a thing that happens with mounts in the game. I'm a bit more interested in the flying mounts because I kind of know that those are more useful to my character.
Yeah.
I wonder, there is, I think, a world where they can expand the mount equipment.
Yeah.
I don't know, some special friggin' horseshoes that give the mount, a kind of, even a spell effect that just happens underneath the mount as you run through the air. So it looks like it's running in something.
Exactly like the Paladin Order Hall ones. Where they don't fly.
Or the store mounts. Some of the store mounts inexplicably just spawn wings whenever they fly, but others just do sort of run in air.
Yeah, I mean, the Paladin ones literally just run on air. And there's golden light colored hoof marks where they run, and it's perfect.
Well, you see, maybe Blizzard think that should be reserved for store mounts.
It's
not always like that, but it's like that. It's a 100% done deal. Even if a store mount looks like a ground mount, that it will be able to fly. That's just how store mounts work. It's not like that for the in-game mounts as much. So I think, that probably would be a good option. Just to help people always use the mount they want.
Yep.
Either that, or if they could do some sort of because I know you can do this with a macro, probably, but if they have an official support for if you have 2 slots and 1 hotkey, and into those slots you drag a flying mount and a ground mount, and then that's just your mount hotkey, and depending on if you're in a flying area or a ground area, it will always use the appropriate mount. Maybe something like that would be an okay option. But generally, I just advocate for massively expanding the mount equipment system and turning mount equipment away from a system kind of designed to solve, people are always going to use the Water Strider.
Yeah.
For that, that's the mount equipment's a very defensive design.
Yeah.
It's not a very aggressive, here's some cool new shit for you to get and unlock and be excited about. It's just solving a few problems of balancing the mounts. I think it would be interesting if we had a new version of mount equipment that was just a lot more engaging, and perhaps some of your criticisms could be met with that. Certainly, though, I'll say it's a very nice mount.
Looks alright.
Sticking with the Draenei, we have the new Zone of Eridath.
Wow, a new zone of World of Warcraft.
Wow, it used to be called Macari, now it's called Eridath because Macari sounds pretty similar to McCree, sort of. Basically, there's a character, Jacera or something of Macari, that was a reference to Jesse McCree. Jesse McCree is one of the Blizzard employees who, in the recent scandal, has, no longer has a job at Blizzard, and is being removed in terms of references from all of the Blizzard games, including the Overwatch character McCree. Now, for Overwatch, that's probably going to mean a lot of re-recording dialogue and stuff, and I would wonder for World of Warcraft, how are they going to do that? Because Macari is said a few times by those voice actors. Now, are they really going to get all those voice actors back and re-record their lines? Because that's one option. Another option would be to, remove lines or... even, I don't really know how you can do that without a bunch of extra work.
I guess they just sort of do it all remotely, hopefully.
I guess so, yeah.
But
they probably have, struck up some sort of contract where, if they need amends from a voice, they can probably request them in a reasonable period of time.
And I also imagine that, even aside from any contract, if someone reached out and said, hey, do you mind? We'll throw you a little bit of money to re-record these, Velen, for example, record a couple lines. I'm sure that voice actor would be like, sure. They're like, why? What's the reason?
Who was it? NASA in chat said they are recording the line back. They said it. So there you go.
Yeah. Which leads me to one question. Will they redo the Lightforged Draenei joke? The
What's
one that
that
goes, have you seen Prophet Velen's new dance? He calls it the Macarena.
They're going to need to write a new joke? Oh, shit.
Yeah. Oh, dear. You know what? I'm actually going to say, now that I'm actually just looking at the jokes and flirts, I wanted to say it right. Given how they've renamed some achievements, I feel
Rose before ho-ho-hos.
Yeah, I feel like these flirts might be in the kind of in the realm of being changed eventually.
I don't think they should.
I don't think not
no way should the
fantastic.
The flirts are funny.
They're incredibly good, yeah.
They're obviously jokes.
They're so good.
So they shouldn't be renamed.
Yeah, I agree. But
I think we'll be going a bit too far to do that. So anyway, there's Eridath. There's that change. And yeah, here it is on the map. So there's that. Right, moving on.
Oh, that's going to be so confusing for someone who doesn't follow World of Warcraft news in any capacity. But they played back in Legion, they log in, and they just open the map and they're like, is that? That wasn't called that.
Yeah, and then they listen back to the voice lines. They're like, I could have sworn this was different. Yeah.
Oh, God, just gaslight their players.
Then we've got 3 new Void Elf colors added to the 9.1.5 PTR. So there you go. And I guess, Grats, they're not called High Elves, but they basically are High Elves, and now you can have them in the Alliance. So I think it's a victory for those players who I think still might link that Ian interview to have a laugh at. It's funny comparing the Ian interview that was giving the firm no on High Elves to it's just funny compared to how it's went now. So there's that. Right, now getting on to gameplay stuff, this is a decently big one. We've got the new soft cap for AoE in patch 9.1.5, where most of the abilities that got a hard cap of, usually 5 or 8, they are now actually, in a way, uncapped. They're not going to be target limited. However, they do have square root scaling. So here is a great graph. Wowhead did a really excellent post breaking this whole thing down. So here you can see the blue line is uncapped, right? So that's just if your damage is just, wasn't changing based on you having more and more and more people. I don't mean changing. You know what I mean, right? It was all just kind of going linearly, I suppose. And then with a 5 and 8 soft cap, you can see those lines tail off. So that is indicating that, are you going to be more powerful because of this change with the cap? Absolutely you are, but it's not going to be anywhere near as much as if it was uncapped. So essentially the whole design goal here is to keep the essence of Blizzard's design and tuning goals while maintaining the good game feel that people really would have wanted. And that just thing, if you use a Frost Scythe, look at the animation for Frost Scythe. There's a big thingy in front of you. And if that only hits like 5 targets, but there's 10 in front of you, especially doing some legacy content, that just feels really silly and unintuitive. So this should be good for the game feel. It is a damage boost. It's not a humongous damage boost when you really get into the numbers, but it is a little damage boost. And yeah, I think just overall, it will make the game feel better.
Yep. I mean, it actually reminds me of something else, because there was something else I wanted to bring up, but didn't. So, you know when you were talking about the Corthian armaments? And how you were like, why didn't they just do it the full way? I was thinking about it, and I saw someone in chat say maybe they did it to like cut down on production resources and cut down on what they needed to do. Because that's what I think some of the problems with World of Warcraft feel like to me recently. Which is, you know, whenever you're doing something, right? And just imagine you're doing anything that you actually want to do. Well, you need to do. And you know you're working on it, and you know whenever you reach something that's technically done, but then you sit with it and go, no, well, I can make some improvements.
Yeah.
Or I'll go a little bit further. It feels like they do everything to the point of the bare minimum specification and then move on. Be that a problem with individual members of the team, be that a problem with how restricted they are in time, where it's like, we need to get this done, do it the fastest possible way, don't really care about quality. That's maybe possibly a thing with some of the implementation because of, tools and stuff. But putting a 5 target hard cap versus the fairly simple move to this kind of makes me think of that again, where it's the idea of, like you say, this completely fits, within, like, unless people are starting to pull up to like 20 targets, which I don't think many people would be doing, unless they have a plan to deal with it anyway, then this is fundamentally very little change as far as the game design is concerned. But it's the player experience that is improved now, because the players don't have the old problems of, I can't go and pull 15 targets in old content and destroy them. So I feel like this is them doing what I'm going to call, like, the extra 10% or the extra 20% on their original work. Same with turning the Corthian armaments into individual pieces. And I know Dakar also complained that I'm surprised they didn't note it, where the weapon one rolls off hands as well, instead of them being separate.
We'll get into that later once we actually hit those in the doc, because he does have that included in the doc.
Okay, sure. Yeah, but it's the idea of, I feel like this is them going, here's literally the bare minimum that we can pass with, as opposed to taking the extra step to go, what problems does this cause in implementation? How do we solve it? And I feel like this is that's what that feels like to me in a big way.
Yeah, so I think there could be an explanation for this. So, we're certainly in a situation where I think there's a lot of dissenting opinion in the WoW team, and I think you can really see that there's a lot of people who lost a lot of internal arguments in the WoW team. And if those arguments, because there always have been people advocating for what the players believe in at Blizzard. Like, I can just tell you that is so. But they seemingly would just tend to lose the argument all the friggin' time. So like, there's that as to why the good things don't happen. And then I think another part of this, and this is probably something to really think about, how long has this team been effectively sprinting a marathon? Because the release of Battle for Azeroth, I think we all know, was a little bit of a disaster. I mean, do you remember how bad the Azerite stuff felt? And just the whole situation? And then, there was patch 8.1 coming out and really trying, to do what they could in that short amount of time. Now, patch 8.1 was responding to, it was trying to triage, right, some launch issues of BFA. And then 9.1.5 is kind of like left doing a little bit similar. Patch 9.2 was also doing similar, because essences were never a part of the base design of the BFA expansion, right? They were a thing that were added in because basically Blizzard decided, okay, we're going to just quit it with the Azerite armor. You'll still get it, but you won't really have to work for it. Whatever, it'll be fine. It'll just work. Essences are the new thing, and here's how you get them. So that was them playing catch up. And then if you look at patch 8.3, I mean, it was reusing 2 zones. It did not have a massive amount of great, unique new content. Now, I do think that I actually think horrific visions are one of the best features that they've shipped in years. Maybe one of the best since like Mage Tower or something. I know some people hate horrific visions because of the time trial thing. You might think, well, wow, what the hell? You don't really like the time trial feel. For me, I would say it meshed really well with the player fantasy, and then I actually found progressing through the visions fun. That's just my personal experience, but if you look at patch 8.3, it had a raid that was clearly Nyloth and Old Gods done in the cheap. It had a patch that was clearly world content done in the cheap, and then it did have the one really good thing with the horrific visions, which of course Blizzard messed up by, you know, making you grind the boring stuff to be able to get in, which is something they initially were going to do with Torghast as well. Imagine if you... By the way, imagine if you had to get resources to go into Torghast. That was part of the initial plan during this for this expansion. Now that was an idea that was killed very early on, I believe in alpha, or maybe even before alpha. But you know, just for an example. So if you look at BFA, they're constantly fixing their own mistakes and playing catch up. Even patch 8.3, which probably took away from some Shadowlands dev time, that was them trying to fix up corruptions and add in the corruption rotation vendor that people so dearly loved. So that was all catch up, right? And them being behind schedule. Obviously, right? Because if they did have any form of production plan, that production plan didn't involve the game not being that well received and them having to respond to loads of player feedback. So you have that. And then you hit Shadowlands. So not only does Shadowlands get railed by the pandemic, which is, you know, it's happened to everyone. Not only is Shadowlands hurt by that, but I think Shadowlands has also probably inherited a lot of how they had to sprint their way through BFA. And it's that thing with BFA. BFA had less content than Legion, right? It didn't have that patch cadence of, you know, the 77-day, just every 77 days there's a new WoW patch. I mean, what an exciting time that was.
Wow.
That fell off the rails in BFA. It still is, it's very much off the, I mean, it's fallen off the rails, rolled down the cliff, went into the sea, and is now dribbling its way into the sediment at the very bottom of the sea. That's, you know, a patch every 77 days plan, right? That's dead and gone. So we just have this thing, if you think about it, BFA is just them playing catch up the whole time. Shadowlands, through alpha and beta, they're constantly playing, catch up. The Maw releases in this like weird sort of half done state where there's like a few promising things, but then it doesn't really get enough development. You look at Threads of Fate, clearly unfinished. You look at Path of Ascension, clearly unfinished.
Also, you have to grind currency to get in.
And you've got to grind currency to get in, showing that once more they did not learn basic lessons that they should have learned from horrific visions. Yeah. And then patch 9.1 is trying to sort of meet a few criticisms and have the Shadowlands systems, you know, extend nice and naturally, and then that doesn't work. And then you look at patch 9.1.5, and is 9.1.5, you know, the Legion TImewalking is great and all that stuff. But other than that, is it focused on content or is it focused on patching up mistakes? It's obviously focused on patching up mistakes because they're just doing the list of fan favorite mistakes to patch up. And I bring all of this up to say that they've clearly, I mean, this is development from 2018 to now 2021. Over 3 years if you go from, August BFA launch through to now. It's been over 3 years, and they have had to constantly pick up the pieces of their shitty designs. So I think it's a situation where if this whole thing was, you know, done and maybe they were a bit more conservative with their systems and they were able to do all of this just at a good marathon pace, probably would have been a lot better. But what's happened is they've constantly had to triage problems. That's probably just made them have to sprint to solve those problems, which has probably contributed to burnout and stress and all that bullshit. And now we're in a situation where, you know, it's 3 years, it's a marathon, but it's just been disaster to disaster to disaster. And that means they've been doing that marathon at a sprinting pace. And that's obviously, I mean, not literally a sprint, you know, maybe a 5K pace or something. And, you know, we're just at that weird situation where, going really back to the start of this, all of those extra, the extra 10% that really is what makes it in terms of player experience. No, they get the basic broad strokes of everything implemented, but it's as if they never have enough time to actually iterate and get the design right and free from problems. And I wonder, is that just a case of, from a planning and production perspective, they've completely screwed the pooch since BFA, and I would say they've done that because Legion was full of risks that luckily paid off, even though there was some friction. They've then made similarly risky things trying to, recapture the Legion magic, but those have been too risky. And all of this is probably just thrown off their production to the point where they can't do that final bit of iteration and polish that could make all these things feel okay. Because maybe things would have been a bit different if 9.0 shipped with the 9.1.5 changes, and many people would probably argue the 9.1 or even 9.0 should have shipped with a bunch of what is in 9.1.5.
Exactly. I mean,
I have to breathe.
Yeah, so isn't that one of the best things to sort of experience from a production standpoint? They like the work you don't do, you have to do the work. You have to do the work eventually. You can't just never do it.
Mm-hmm.
And as Void Tracks in chat said a little bit earlier, Blizzard are getting really good at doing the same work twice.
Oh, incredible.
Well, they will implement the system, and then between 6 months and a year later, they'll do the extra work to do it good, but only once that work has been deemed necessary. Because they just kind of just throw stuff out and go, it's the best we could do with the time we have. And then the room is created in the schedule for them to fix it whenever the bean counters notice that the money's running away. At least that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
It could be a literal production and planning issue where, whoever's actually laying out the schedule in all these teams is just doing it poorly. That's also a possibility. I mean, obviously,
I think in a world where it feels like in a world where it feels like the content's rushed out, I think that's a pretty understandable, I think a pretty believable reason as to why. Because like all the designs are unpolished. The world boss, at least at the start, causes the whole friggin' zone to basically break. The path of ascension still isn't fixed from launch, just as an example.
Yeah.
Fate Scribe had bugs with Phase 3. People in our guild were like having the floor assets not load in. All the people finding the Sylvanas lag. It's like there's just... And then, just the basic design things, being like all first draft. That all, to me, suggests that it's that in production. Facing.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who's been watching Yes Minister in the thick of it, Joel saying, Blizz is the only company in the world that can out-government a government when it comes to rework. I think that's what it feels like, where, and then, Alistair said, why don't they give them an extra year to... Oh, that's an interesting... All right.
Uh-oh.
Yep, chat just got a little bit interesting there, but all good now. Alistair said, why don't they just give them an extra year to work everything out? That's what it feels like. But here's the thing. They'll never do that because of the entire point of their, their goal of sell expansion. Get everyone in, sell expansion. They can't admit that they need a lot of extra time. And they did get extra time. They got an extra month for Shadowlands.
Nowhere near enough.
Yeah, so imagine how bad that would have been if it had launched, that they were willing to delay it. So I feel like there's a lot of pressure from the top from them to actually, release things, but they don't have the time to do it all correctly. They'll never just go, all right, we'll take a year. Sorry, boys, no content for 6 months or a year. We'll just make the next stuff really good, because then the habit formation's gone, people unsub, people are gone. Yeah. So they have to keep stringing them along, almost the same way they're stringing along their devs. It's like, oh, and you'll get to finish the system next week, I promise, every week. So it's this thing where and this is why I think a lot of people intuitively understand that it's the systems that is causing a lot of these problems, and that's why you've got people going, just don't do systems. Don't give us any more systems, because they're bad for player experience most of the time, even if there are maybe positives on like the gameplay angle. We don't care about them compared to all the negatives we experience. So that's, I think, the solution. If they, more powers nice. If they just don't make systems, if they don't give themselves additional work in the planning stage and actually operate under the assumption that they need 20-30% more time for everything they're going to do on the system and balance perspective, then you'll have a solution. You'll have these things happening or been coming out the way they should be if they're given time on PTR and the developers are given time to do it. And the way to make that time is to not give yourself too much work. So don't make any systems for the next expansion. Just make sure everything is twice as good as you've ever released anything before.
Just that I'm fairly sure about, so they think that this is mostly just drama, trumped up by influencers to, a lot of them, from what I understand, and a few people have told me, a depressing quantity of sort of Blizzard dev people do actually think that a lot of this drama is just trumped up by influencers to, make money and cause drama, make a big ruckus, which, I then say back, cool, that's only an opinion you can really hold if you just don't have a good understanding of how shit works. Because if we start spouting wild shit, people are going to say, that's fucking dumb, piss off.
Yeah,
that's how it works. Like, I say dumb shit, I get comments about it, right? So it is a real issue. It is a real issue, and the longer that they don't deal with these problems, and like I would say maybe the good, or some of the devs who had dissenting opinions that were at least on the side of the players, as those people perhaps leave the company or something, it's a bit of a tricky situation. They really do need to just swallow their pride, and listen. And listen, stop blocking the I fucking hate the word influencers. Stop blocking I actually hate just about every word or phrase that references to people that do our job, because they're all horrible. I don't know. People who watch them, I guess, they need to start realizing that, at best, we're just like a bit of a reflection of what the community says, because if we say all this shit, and people actually, agree with it, and, we're sort of saying things that they agree with, it's like the learning from that is not that there's a massive anti-Blizzard PsyOps campaign going on where, me and Preach, fly to, we fly to like a secret bunker somewhere and plan the downfall of Blizzard. It ain't that. Yeah. It ain't that. This stuff only happens because the viewers agree. Yeah. If the viewers don't agree, then it doesn't happen because... Well, you do it, and then people are like, actually, I don't agree with you. That's bullshit. Disliked. I'm leaving.
Yep.
Oh, we got an issue?
Yeah, we have an issue.
Love issues.
So, yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but someone called...
the old yeast infection.
Yeah, so that alert is going...
Penis joined the guild.
Connell, you're going to have a really fun time on the Clips channel.
Yeah.
Hiding all of that. We'll figure something out.
There are plenty of cocks in our guild, so I'm hardly surprised.
Yep, so sorry about that. We're all back to good now.
There we go. Good. Matt has removed the penis from the stream.
Yep.
And speaking of that, it's time to talk about big new systems and quality of life changes. So, let's go. No yeast or penis notifications involved, thankfully.
Yep.
Cut that bit out for the clips, please, Connell. So, first thing, would you believe this, everyone? Soul Cinders infinitely farmable, and repeat runs give you the full amount. Because the way a whole bunch of people said, oh, legendary recrafting doesn't matter because you get more soul ash, and also repeated runs give you continual soul ash, even though that's only 20% of the amount of soul ash from the first run, and all those friggin' weird people who almost, took that really weird stand when it came of shilling for Blizz when it came to the legendary recrafting. It's like, well, let's have a look at the changes Blizzard themselves actually make based on user feedback and see how those go, such as the legendary scrapper that is going to be a thing, and now this. So Soul Cinders are going to be infinitely farmable. Repeat runs will give you the full amount. So there's none of that, you do your first Torghast runs, and then if you do continual ones, you only get 20% of the Soul Ash. Now, you can just run Torghast again and again and again and again. You will get the full quantity of Soul Ash and the full quantity of Soul Cinders. Just that! There is a little bit of a change where they have significantly increased the amount of Soul Cinders awarded from layers 8 through 12, Maw Assaults, Tormentors of Torghast, and Command Table missions. So yeah, that's that. You can just go grind it out. You want to get some Legos? Go get them. You're not sitting there waiting for a weekly reset, being, I have to, I can only do 2 for my weekly engagement. Then Blizzard has decided I don't get any more rewards. No, you just do it. Just do it. You can do it. Now, sure, some people won't really want to do that with Torghast, but I would certainly say that this is a far better situation for it to be in. So, yeah, that's pretty good. And it also solves that issue where, Soul Ash could be sent from a main to an alt as of 9.1, but Soul Cinders couldn't. So for some people, they'd make a new alt, they'd think, oh, great, well, it's going to be, however many weeks before I can get the Lego, up to that item level and feel good about it, which, to be honest, that doesn't impact me because I don't even have a Soul Cinders Lego. I just stopped bothering. I stopped bothering because I was just raid logging, and it really seemed like most of our guilds seemed to be raid logging. Everyone was way behind in renown. People were behind in their legendaries, and we were all just like, well, yeah, of course. People don't want to go do that stuff. But now, if you are getting a less stingy amount of Soul Cinders, well, then you're going to say, okay, well, maybe I do 4 runs of Torghast, and I'll get the thing that I want. And you can just go and do that. And I think that does feel a lot better. I mean, this, in a way, you could say it still is Torghast because, you do it for the player power. But there was another aspect of Choregas where it was like, do your 2 per week, or you're a naughty boy and you don't get as many rewards. That bit's gone now. You just do Torghast whenever you want to get those rewards. So I think this is a really good change.
Yes.
I was going to say, what do you think, or are you having fun moderating chat?
Yes, so I've actually just been fiddling with Nightbot and trying to mess with the what do you call it, the filters to make sure we can stop getting a lot of spam in chat.
Epic.
We should be good now. But
yeah, I mean, I was going to say we could turn on sub mode, but that actually is would be playing into their plan.
Yep.
To probably subscribe and then do chargebacks.
Oh, I mean, like they literally were like they were members doing spamming, so
Bonkers.
couldn't have helped. But yeah, no, we're good. We're good.
Yeah, cool. So anyway, the heartening thing whenever you see spam, by the way, the heartening thing is that person is literally wasting their life. You can feel pretty good that that's the level that your opponents are going to. They're going to do sad and embarrassing bullshit, There's no reason to feel bad about it. It's just dumb people fucking laugh at them.
Yep.
So there you go.
Yeah, my favorite part is when obviously they're not spending literal money if they're just going to charge back a sub. But for people to have access to tools, then access to those tools to spam costs either substantial time or money. So, I don't know, there's nothing to worry about, just people to laugh
Yeah,
at.
no, it's funny. Great. It does not impact us whatsoever, and all it does is waste their time. Yeah. Where it's like, well, you clearly haven't thought through this one through, have you? Yep. So, moving on for systems changes then. Instant renown level 40 and anima BOA tokens for alts. Once more, things that people have wanted. Players who reach 80 renown can purchase a broker mark of distinction for 500 gold in Ouroboros that can be used on an alternate character to instantly grant the character up to 40 renown, and of course it can't be used above 40 renown. So basically, as far as renown is concerned, bam! That is patch 9.0 solved. Now, I would say to Blizz, let's make this for players who reach 60 renown. Maybe just open it up a little bit, I think. And I do actually say that because I think the whole renown system has just been... it's a colossal design failure in my head. I don't think it's particularly helpful for pacing. If you're going to argue that it's there to pace out the missions, we know from the past that you don't need a renown bar to pace out the missions. And it's not like the renown bar is, in many cases, even giving you a cool new reward. It is just like, hey, here's some shit that we've gated, now you get it. You don't really feel like you've earned it because, you've got it by just accidentally getting some anima, doing some boring stuff. So, anything that diminishes the renown bar as a part of World of Warcraft, I see as a good thing. And that's why I see this as a good change. And it also means, like, as much as the rapid renown catch-up is, like, pretty decent, I guess. You still get 1 renown for doing a thing, basically. And 40 renown levels, that's a lot of things. So yeah. I think this is very good. Yeah. Very good, and at least it sets a bit of a policy position from Blizzard. I would hope that patch 9.2, not 9.2.5, 9.2, comes out with one that will take you instantly to renown level 80. Assuming they continue the renown bar into patch 9.2.
Yeah, I actually just had a funny thought about this in terms of how it's actually come out. Or how it's, that's come out's a bit of the wrong term. Maybe it's the unexpected effects of this experience. So, remember when they... received thunderous applause saying there was no artifact power, no, Azerite power. Remember that? Well, the whole point there was that you got progression that felt arbitrary, that didn't really give you anything interesting. It was just a bar you had to fill. And you got that from doing things all the time. So when you come back from break or, we're playing an alt, you had an arbitrary bar to grind up that restricted you from playing the game because player power was locked behind it. What's renown?
Matt, are you expecting principles to be learned? Because the one thing that dev team has shown is that they can notice things, but the principles is the bit they struggle with, as evidenced by the repetition of the same mistakes again and again and again. Now, those mistakes might be wearing slightly different clothing, but they are the same mistakes.
Yeah, they changed, they basically put lipstick on the pig.
Yeah.
And then just said, here you go. We've got your terrible systems that you hated that really didn't resonate with you, but we're good for engagement, ? That's gone. Please, everyone, please tell us how great we are. and then just literally, like, behind the curtain, just quick, smuggle it back in a way they don't recognize. Those dumb players will never expect it.
I don't think.
Yeah.
I really don't think it's that.
No, it can't.
I think it's an accident, and they just
Yeah.
haven't realized that they've repeated a thematically quite similar mistake. But I mean, regardless, that's why it is worth calling out that it is a thematically similar mistake, because, plays a part in learning. Now, the other thing then is the Kyrian Traveler's Anima Cache. 250 anima. There you go. And a decently nice thing there is there's no tax, because it costs 250 anima. When redeemed on an alt, gives you 250 anima. Makes sense. So there you go. That's really good. I'm going to quickly pop off for the biology.
All right.
And I will see you in a sec, because the next thing is the slot-specific Corthian armaments, and I want to be fired up and ready for that one, because it's going to be fun.
Okay.
And actually, it is legit a good change that will be good for any alts that you do roll in patch 9.1.5, so there is that too.
Yeah, does have its issues, as Dakor has very kindly let people know. Also, you've left me at a good time trying to solve moderation issues, but we're all good. We're all fine. Okay, maybe we're not all fine. That's a lot of stuff going on. So, hello everyone. I hope the throbbing things in chat don't distract you too much. I would ask what you'd like to talk about in his absence, but also, I kind of a little bit sidetracked, if I'm honest. So let's see. Do you think that Shadowlands will end with 9.2, 9.2.5? That's a good question. I think 9.2, at least that's what me and Michael have talked about a lot, is that 9.3 probably won't happen. Just because there's a decent, I'm trying to help John. There's a decent chance that they will want another expansion as soon as possible. And it's almost the same thing that happened with Warlords of Draenor, but this is a substantially worse problem. And the only reason they don't go straight to another expansion is actually the story elements and like the kind of player lead on and build up. So there's a decent chance that they're scrambling to reconsider what 9.2 is. It will be difficult to do because they've left 9.1 in a pretty difficult place. But there's a decent chance that they just go, nope, no 9.3. 9.2 is done. It's got some content. Maybe a 9.2.5 with additional content. Maybe something like, maybe this is a little bit talking of idealism as opposed to realism, but like they've done with the Mage Tower, like they've done with the Legion TImewalking and Plus, maybe they'll figure out a way to bring more content that way to keep people going, and then try to get into a new expansion as soon as possible. That's what I think so anyway. And I mean, they don't really have to worry too much about setting up another expansion if they do the kind of twist that they should do and pull us back to more Azeroth-based content. Nice one, Michael. Perfectly done. So I feel like they don't really have to do too much setup to pull us back to Azeroth for a 10.0 that comes after 9.2. Yeah. They just need to figure out a way to very neatly and very obviously, I think, because if they don't try to make it obvious that they've cut 9.3 out, we'll be annoyed. So they need to put a big bow on the jailer and throw him back into the maw in 9.2 and call it a day. And then, close the veil behind the Shadowlands and go, right, we're sorted. So that's what I think anyway.
Should we just turn on slow mode?
It's on slow mode.
And how can they spam so much?
Because slow mode is ignored by that, which is a problem, but I'll fix.
Okay, yeah, that's unfortunate. I don't really want to turn chat off on people. But I suppose, look, to wash down all of the yeast and penises, we do have some delicious, nice, fresh 7-Up freeze.
Man, you give people such incredible sound bites. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to have somebody pull them all out of context and clip them together in the worst way. And for that to then spread and it would be so fucking hilarious if that happened.
Yep.
So let me know when it's time to go, and I can hop into these slot-specific Corthian armaments. Or I can just do that now.
I mean, you could do that now while I continue to fiddle around with
cool. Well,
potential.
you have a fun fiddle. There's another good soundbite. So Matt's having a fun fiddle, dealing with all the yeasty peas in the chat, and I'm going to talk about slot-specific Corthian armaments because hey, we're all here for those tasty tokes. They're good. Have a tasty toke of that. All right. Well, slot-specific Corthian armaments. So this is a very, very simple situation, everybody. You might remember the Corthian armaments. They cost 1,000 Stygia whenever patch 9.1 came out. And you'd use this token, and it would just give you a random bit of gear. Now, that could be a helm, it could be boots, it could be anything. Totally random. Now, when we're gearing up a new character in World of Warcraft, that's not particularly useful, because are you as a player going to feel like engaging in that Corthian armament system when you don't even know what you're going to get out of it? Because 1,000 Stygia, it's not the most in the world. It does take a little bit of work to get it, so if you're going to be putting that work in, you would like to know where it's going. In the same way that in Mage Tower, the mana pearls. You know, you'd know that if you were going to get some mana pearls to get some benthic gear, that you would at least get the slot that you want. That didn't really help the people who were, of course, going for the benthic lottery, trying to get the, trying to get the sockets and stuff. But you guys understand my point. Now we're in a far better situation as of patch 9.1.5, where the Corthian armaments are now actually individual tokens on a per slot basis. Now this is great. You can see that the weapon tokens cost 1,500 Stygia. Bit more expensive, but that makes sense because it's a weapon. You can see, and this is a really nice thing as well, because in the old system, you pay 1,000 Stygia, but you got bracers. That's a lot less stats for your 1,000 Stygia than if you got, say, shoulders or a chest piece, right? So that obviously is one aspect that wasn't ideal. So what's good now is that people can specifically target the slots that they want, and that just fits into how WoW gearing actually works. So much better. I mean, look, let's just say you got some gear from the Honor vendor, you maybe got some initial starter gear from the Anima vendor or something, and you want to fill in 1 or 2 slots, or maybe target, certain pieces, because you know that if you get the Corthian, like the chest, well, maybe not the chest piece because of domination sockets or whatever, but, maybe you want to target one of the higher value ones so you can then upgrade that with the Archivist Codex, upgrade system. Well, now you can actually do that. So this is a design where the relationship between the amount of work that you as a player put in now far better correlates with the reward that you get, and you can target it. So this, I think, is very good. However, we do have, this big however that was pointed out by Dakor on our team. He's even put in a nice, nice little GIF, a moving image, in fact, to represent the weapon experience, because the weapon experience is not really as ideal. So I'll go over Dakor's PTR notes. However, after some testing in PTR, it seems the Corthian weaponry token that, the token awards either a main or offhand. It can give duplicate slots in a row. After having used 10 of these weaponry tokens on PTR, it did average out at 5 one-handed weapons and 5 shields. But the first 4 I got were all shields. That means it cost me a total of 7,500 Stygia for a weapon and offhand when it should have only cost 3,000. Nearly triple the cost. Not very satisfying at all, especially if you have very limited Stygia to use across multiple alts. So that's very true. That's basically it. True. It, I suppose, would be nice if there was maybe a 1H, 2H, and offhand token to allow people to target those, with, of course, the costs of those tokens, being appropriate to that. So a little bit of a quibble on the weaponry side of it, but I think we can all agree that overall this is a great change. And as I said at the top of this video, it just does bring me back to the question of why was it not like this at the start? Because surely this could not be that hard to implement. I mean, I don't know exactly what, the process would be for implementing this, but it didn't stop him for benthic gear and mana pearls, did it? It's obviously not that hard to make a token. I mean, come on, they've been doing this shit for years. So I just do then wonder to myself, why did they do it like that? I mean, did they maybe just think, oh, it's Corthian armaments, it's a catch-up thing, just throw in a token, it'll be fine, is that maybe what they thought at the start? But then that's a bit weird, because when you're in a catch-up gear situation, I mean, you very often will actually want to target specific bits. Or do they do it the initial way, to try to throttle people? Or was it, maybe alluding to what we talked about earlier, just a situation of do one token. Okay, box ticked. We've got that. Now I really have to move on to the next task because, oh my god, there's only so many weeks before this patch comes out and we're all screaming and crunching in a situation like that where it is just that thing where we get the very basic first draft version of everything and they then have to put in way, way, way more work to, not way more work. I mean, that extra 10, 20% that's nice to have. But then it's that situation of if everybody did the extra 10 or 20% of work that was nice to have, then the whole patch would have to be delayed. And perhaps that would be untenable, to the investors or something. Because you got to remember, there's a lot of moving parts in a project like World of Warcraft. It's not just the development team. There's also going to be, having the mount promotion. Because the mount promotion is going to go through a different department and they're going to make a bunch of marketing assets for it. And then they're going to have to talk to the team that do the website to get it all on the website and get it pushed to the launcher. You know what I mean? All of that stuff. There's so many moving parts. And that really will disincentivize them to delay a patch, right? So maybe that's why it ended up being like that. But regardless, aside from this little quibble, which hopefully they do solve, maybe some dupe protection per slot there. Well, actually, it's weird dupe protection per slot because some people would maybe re-roll that, wanting to get the same slot but better stats. But for a catch-up perspective, you're not going to care as much about that unless you're really planning on getting this Corthian armament gear and then taking it all the way up to max item level through the Archivist Codex upgrade system, in which case targeting stats will be pretty important to you. So hard to say. That bit's not perfectly ideal, but everything else is way better. So I guess thumbs up to that. Just make it like this, again in future. Basically, I would say to Blizz, find a template for this sort of thing that works, and then just have that stuff locked in as the way you do those things. So then you can, instead of having to iterate the same thing again and again and again every patch, you can maybe put some effort into doing some cool new things. So there you go. Corthian armaments. So Matt has been furiously typing away for the last little while. How's it going?
Yeah, chat issue should be, let's go. Hello, it's me. Chat issue should relatively be solved. A lot of, it's, I'm still working on it. Should be mostly fine. I'll do the last thing necessary very, very soon. And then we should be completely fine. But yeah, no.
Damn.
It's like, again, they've done this before. They've done it right. Why not do it again right the first time? Why are they doing the same work over and over again? Why are they doing the same thing but not the same way? Yeah. In a way that's worse. It's the worst part that annoys me. Because I don't mind doing something different, but it's just worse. It's just worse. But, also, about them being targetable stats-wise, why not? Why not just make them targetable stats-wise? Why would
certainly be good for player satisfaction. Absolutely. There's a reason why whenever people could target the stats on their legendaries and the stats on bits of crafted gear in this expansion, that whenever that hit beta or alpha or whatever it was, people thought that was a really cool thing, that people get that level of control. So yeah, you're right. Why not? Why not indeed?
It would also reward, people who know what they're doing gameplay-wise substantially. That's something that I actually have quite enjoyed. Of all the things of Shadowlands, that's one of the things I've actually enjoyed, is when I can muster up the courage to actually get an ult up to 60, buying all the crafted gear, but knowing the stats, knowing what stats are good, and then going into a normal, because I did this with Warlock, where I went and got back in 9.0, went and got the perfect stats, gemmed everything perfectly, learned how to play AF correctly, went into, I don't know what it was parse-wise, because I didn't log, but went into a normal Nathra and was, obviously it wasn't up there because my gear was kind of poor, but I was keeping pace with people 20 item levels above me and destroying people around my same item level. But that was a reward for knowing how to play and for knowing what stats to buy when I could buy the stats. So that was a satisfying thing that, they could maybe learn from for catch-up.
Indeed. Yeah, no, absolutely. So, moving on, we have another systems change. Shards of Domination have had their drop rate be increased. There you go. Now, why was this not hotfixed in way earlier? You could have just hotfixed this in after the first reset, or maybe the second reset, because that was about the time when everyone was saying, hey, we're getting a bit suspicious over these domination charts. I would say, though, exactly what Dakor has said. Just make the rank 1 shards purchasable from Bonesmith Hyrmere in Korthia for some Stygian Embermints and give people, a bundle to just buy them all. Because the fun part... Okay, I don't really think there is the fun part of the domination shards is getting the set bonus and looking at your DPS meter be slightly bigger. because there's basically not fun in the actual design of them. Their effects are really quite boring, unfortunately. But, the fun would at least have been, building your, maybe building your set. And then, like, once you have all of those, like, gems in your gear and stuff, then you can do the upgrades. And then you can actually engage in that game loop. But with this, they've had this two-tiered problem of, you've got to get the domination sockets. You then have to get the right piece of gear that activates the set bonus that you want. And then you've got to get all of the gems that you want. And it's like, once you have all of those things, now your track is on the rails. And whenever you get Stygian embers from the raid, you're going to feel better about it because then you're doing your upgrades and stuff. So I'd just say, increasing accessibility to the system is the way to do it. I think a deterministic way would absolutely be preferable. I assume instead, though, that they're probably just going to increase the drop rate to the point where you're just shot, machine gun with them, and you'll get them all pretty quickly. So there's that. I don't think there's too much else to talk about. If I talk about domination shards anymore, I will jump out a window. Now, speaking of jumping...
Oh, wow, what a smooth transition that was.
Yeah, we've got a interesting new item, actually. Genuinely an interesting new item, because it does impact how you play the game. So, you can have a new item now called the Gateway Control Shard that will, when you use it, cause you to interact with the nearest demonic gateway. That means that you use the demonic gateway without having to click on the demonic gateway. Now... Of course, this is something people can already do in a way, but I'll just go through Dakor's, his notes. So this isn't going to be massive for the casuals. This will be very welcome for people who raid. And a lot of this is down to some boss strategies being pretty reliant on very good use of the demonic gateways so as to either negate an AoE ability or quickly traverse the encounter space, which certainly is one of the reasons why there are a few times where whenever Leon is about for our raid, we all feel pretty good about that because we get our cookies, we can get our gateways if we need them. It's just nice to have a warlock around. And this is now making the warlocking experience even better. So first, you can already do this with a macro. You just create it's a focus target macro, and then you keybind interact on mouse over to that. But the thing here, though, is most people don't do that kind of thing, and they're just going to go and click on it. Now, the likes of me and Matt, we actually, and we'll get onto mouse cursor soon, we use a mouse cursor. Like, my mouse cursor actually has got my, my cast bar and stuff on it, which is, I guess, kind of neat. But one of the nice things about the mouse cursor that I use in game is it's a bit larger than normal. So I always know where my mouse is, which makes demonic gateway usage easy enough, just with the old fashioned way of clicking on it. But for this, you could get the gateway control shard, and this will be 100% nice, reliable, no macros needed. You just keybind that to your board, and whenever you need to use that gateway, smash your button, boom, away you go. Just like how, there's some players who click on their extra action button. There are other players who have keybound it, and certainly it's better if you're the latter. So this is just a nice little quality of life thing that sort of circumvents not needing, because you don't need it, but, it circumvents the macro-based setup, which I think is the right way to do it, because these things, they shouldn't be involved in, with macros and all of that. And this, actually, I have to wonder if this is something Blizz want to do more broadly, because in the last stream,
that's right.
Yeah, we talked about how they've basically made at least aspects of the implied target add-on be baseline now in regards to mouse over heals and stuff.
Yeah, so that's another thing they haven't commented on in any capacity, but I'm really looking forward to seeing it, because I think I was saying about them specifically in the last stream, there's so much of playing World of Warcraft that feels good. It feels great because the game is, well architected in a number of ways. But also, there's just times you're playing and this is a game from 2004 that certain parts haven't been maybe given as much love as possible.
Yeah.
Because add-ons solve a lot of problems. Like, I've been using implied target since I found it in, I guess it would have been Legion a little bit, so everything I had was mouse over by default without any macros, because actually setting up macros for everything is a massive pain in the ass. It's not very complicated. It's literally just a lot of copy pasting, a lot of changing stuff. It's very annoying. So this is another example of genuine usability issue. Bit of a ratty solution, but actually solved.
Yeah,
actually solved.
I'm a big fan of changes like this, actually. So absolutely, the more the merrier in the future. Our next thing, then, another nice little quality of life thing, is the Venari teleports. This isn't big breaking news or anything, but we now actually know where they are. So the Desmodron, or the hell you call it, that fast travel point takes you just outside the raid entrance, and the Perdition Hold one takes you to the gates of Perdition Hold. So there you go. And one note here, the Desmotron location will be available as soon as the Anima Flow Stabilizer upgrade is purchased, but the Perdition Hold one is only available after having completed the Perdition Hold quest line for Venari, which I guess makes sense because that's the thing that introduces you to it. So yeah, Anima Flow Stabilizer. That's like the little go to Korthia thing, isn't it? Yeah. So there you go. You can go to the raid without having to run through Desmodron and pull 500,000 thick dudes who are going to rail on you for a bit, and maybe even dismount you and then make you a little bit salty before raid night. So that's pretty good. Speaking of other good things, they've now made it so that the rescued souls in Torghast count towards your Covenant weekly. So this means, because you're probably going to be doing a bit of Torghast, but when you're doing Torghast, not only will you get significantly more Soul Cinders and the full quantity of Soul Ash, including if it is beyond your first run of that wing per week, not only do you have that improvement, you also have got the nice improvement of any of those souls you pick up will actually contribute to your Covenant Weekly. That's great. And by the way, that Covenant Weekly is actually a repeatable quest now. So there you go. This is not a big change, but it's just one of those nice little quality of life things where, any one change like that doesn't make the game radically better. But the sum total of loads and loads and loads of changes like that, well, that does make the game better, and they are making plenty of those. That's great. Speaking of another similar such change, we've got the Field Anima Diverter, which has appeared on the PTR. So completing quests from Archivist Rosur will provide access to an Anima Diverter within Korthia where Anima can be directly deposited. So you do that quest, and then this means that you can deposit all your Anima items when you're in the field without having to go back to your Covenant Sanctuary. So basically, whenever you go to Archivist Rosur to hand in your, your fragments or whatever they're called, like the artifacts and stuff that you get around Korthia, which clog up your bags, you'll also be able to deposit all the anima that also clogs up your bags. Now, I think it would be better if these things just were applied as soon as you get them. Yeah. Like, was it in BFA that they did that? Because they didn't do that in Legion, but they did in BFA. Oh, yes. No, in Legion you had to click on them manually. Yeah. I think, yeah. It just would be nice if it operated a bit more clearly, but this is still a good change.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I will defend them this a little bit. Well, it's definitely not a major thing, but from the experience of being a player and returning anima to the anima pool actually always felt quite nice to me. I will say that moment of, oh, how much do I have in my bags? Maybe I should be able to know, thanks Blizzard, but clicking the deposit button and then seeing the thing fill up was actually fairly nice from a UX perspective. Same with the research. In a way, I liked the feeling of turning stuff in, but not worth the hassle. So I'll sort of vaguely defend them. They were, wasn't worth it, but it was a nice touch. It just wasn't worth the actual damage it did to filling up your bags and the general experience.
I actually think on the topic of bags, you know what? Let's actually just take a quick little break from the news and talk about bags.
Go for it.
Because in FF14, you've got your bags. You've also got your armory chest, and gear goes to your armory chest. All the other things go into your bags, and then there's also your chocobo saddle bags too. But I haven't really used those that much. I was just wondering though, within World of Warcraft, do you think it would make sense for Blizzard to do something that splits up your bags? Because already in the game you can use like an engineering bag or an herbalism bag or something. Yeah. I would wonder if it would make sense in a future expansion. Maybe this is some new bag slots that the players could earn. I think this could be quite cool. But in the same way you've got your reagent bank in your bank, what would happen if you were able to unlock 2 new bag slots? One of them was for gear, maybe gear and key items or something. The other one's for reagents. What if that was a thing? You could maybe argue that it would just be too much to give to the players, but I don't know. I don't think it would be a big problem. Because certainly, giving us, 2 more bag slots storage slots per bag, maybe in a new expansion or something, or was it Papa's bag that everybody was? I got it the first time I killed that rare in the pre-expansion event. Sorry. It's like these tiny little piecemeal things, and Blizzard have kept on saying that they think the real solution to bag space bloat sort of doesn't lie in giving you more bags. Yeah. Because that's just kicking the can down the road. Now, it's fine for them to say that, they've not really done anything to deal with bags. They've actually done the opposite when you look at
worse.
Yeah, when you look at this stuff. So I just wonder, would it make sense to just give us some new types of bags, like how in FF you get the armor or the armory chest or the whatever it's called?
Yeah,
Maybe it'd be a good idea.
Yeah, I think. I mean, as someone very rightly pointed out in chat, last time they added bag space, the game broke. I remember there were substantial issues with a couple of different things, if I remember correctly, around the time they gave bag space to people for the authenticator, and then for Vulpera, because Vulpera have extra bag slots by default.
Was that tied to? No, this is a genuine question because it kind of slipped my mind. I vaguely remember that. Was that not tied to it being your base backpack getting the new slots and not the other backpacks? Or is this just the total quantity of slots available per character?
So, from what I remember it being the base backpack's the problem, but also I feel like they wouldn't be able to just give you new bag slots. Just because if the base backpack's a problem, basically I look at it this way. If something hasn't changed in World of Warcraft, despite it being, something that reasonably would have changed in the past 17 years, I imagine there's a reason it hasn't changed. Yeah, which for this one, I would definitely say the fact that we haven't got an extra bag slot is probably due to some technical reason.
I have zero idea because, man, databases and me, we never got on. Now, I love a good Excel spreadsheet, totally, but... you do some SQL stuff and, a school IT class and my eyes would kind of glaze over because it was just boring to me. But I do wonder, if you, let's just say that the idea that I had there was, maybe going to give you like 30 bag slots for armor and stuff, 30 bag slots for crafting materials. Like, do you then kind of have to like ring fence off some like database space for players, and you have to do that for every single character that exists? So suddenly, if you've, just added 40% onto the, carry capacity of every single character, do you then have to do some like database refactor, some crazy shit that I, of course, 100% don't actually understand? So totally flying blind here, no idea.
Yeah, so
but maybe.
Yeah, so I mean, how do I put this? I feel like for a game that was created when World of Warcraft was created, in the time World of Warcraft was created, and using the tools it was made with, I feel like there's a lot of stuff that, they would need to really, really rebuild. Because, as Grim says, the base backpack was hard-coded to 16, and mad references were everywhere to that, so they couldn't, But it's not even just like, oh, that's like a number 16. It's like the amount of memory that takes up. If you're doing things for a game as like generally well put together historically as World of Warcraft, you're likely doing an insane amount with specific sizes of memory. You're likely really tightly managing everything you use, because I mean that the game has always, at least vaguely speaking, outside of some visual stuff, the game's always ran fairly well on potatoes, which has been like, could be said. Is very good compared to a lot of things. I mean, the visuals kind of throw it away sometimes, but usually it's run really, really well. Right,
I get you. It's like how, when we were like, say in first year and second year, we're doing like C# and Java, and you kind of have like, the nice garbage collection and, like the memory management's handled for you. And then, in like third year, you move into, doing some like C++ and C, and then you've got to do your own memory management. And it's just like, Yeah,
I mean,
that's totally what it's like, when you're a computer science student, you kind of go, bam, into the, away from, to a lower level language or something. And suddenly you've got to do a whole bunch more. And that's probably not an ideal, like one-to-one to this, but maybe it's like thematically a similar problem.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I imagine, because, you're operating so many servers. You've got so many characters. The only way you're going to get that done efficiently is likely if you're doing things really, really, really to the letter and to the number, which would explain why things go so wrong sometimes, why there's so many things that like feel archaically the same, but actually, aren't different. Because I'm reminded of the FF14 problem, where, UGP has basically just said, yes, so we cannot give you infinite glamour spaces. We'll see if we can try to get the glamour dresser a bit higher than 400, but we do not have the memory. Like there's not space in literal computer memory on our servers and in how everything's architected for it to work. I believe he went into no, was it something else? I think he went into detail too, but it was in a Japanese stream, so I was like, I don't fucking know. But I feel like there's a lot of problems there with how core things are architected that they would need to solve, or solve in interesting ways. Because I mean, they do actually do that sometimes, like the reagent bank. You've been able to access that, for crafting, even though it's not on your person. So I feel like they could maybe do a few more things like that to help with bag space issues, generally speaking. But it's definitely, I think it's a bigger issue than Blizzard would ever let on, and that most people would actually see. But
it's one of those things where you look at it as an end user and it feels like it should be very simple, but then the technical side ends up being a completely different kettle of fish.
That's one thing I'd always would love it. I would love for someone on the engineering team at World of Warcraft to be given the permission to write up stuff like this.
That'd be so interesting.
Yeah, like, hey everyone, here's a look at how our bags are actually architected. This is terrible, but we can't fix it, without a massive re-engineering project. So here's the reasons. Here's the reasons for it. Even if that does boil down to, listen, for us to fit this many characters on this server, we have to keep them within this restriction of how much we store in each character, which is why we can't have certain things go in certain ways. I would love that so much.
Man, is it just me, or is this room sweltering and horrible?
It's pretty toasty. I mean, I can pop a window open here, and hopefully the band has disappeared.
The humidity I think it's like 92% humidity in Belfast. Yep. And you got to remember, right? If you're in Florida, your houses don't have the insulation our houses have, and you guys got ACs. So you're like geared up and ready to go and deal with this shit. But we've had this thing where, seriously, over the last, 5 years, maybe 10 years, I've totally noticed this, Matt.
Global warming it.
Our summers are getting way different.
And longer.
Way different and way longer to when I was a kid. Totally. My parents have said the same. Basically, that is common consensus here. And, it's getting to the stage where I feel like more and more places in Northern Ireland are going to need to get ACs. Which is, not really ideal, because ACs are, they're pretty rough in the environment and pretty, costly to run and all that stuff.
Yeah, no, I am genuinely completely ruined by the fact. I actually had this conversation with my housemate earlier, but it's the 10th of September. This is, literally right now, it's summer weather here. It is middle of July summer weather.
Yeah,
it feels above 20 degrees C, which,
fucking break.
Laugh about it all you want if you're from a hotter climate, but because the actual reason was there were some flies in the house, and he was like, what are the flies doing? It's September. Usually they should start dying off after summer. I just went, it's, time-wise, summer's well and truly gone, but no one's told the fucking climate that. No one's told the environment that. No one's told the weather that it's no longer time for flies to be buzzing around.
What I love is that the two places that I can go to sleep at night are either my apartment or my girlfriend's apartment. If it's my girlfriend's apartment, well, the bedroom has a window and the window's broken. It literally can't be opened, and it's really far. And the other window in the other room is also broken. So the only way that it can be opened is a big door in the main kitchen area. So none of that air makes it to the bedroom. So it's always horrible. And then if I go back to my apartment, well, it is a third floor. So it's always just extremely hot and horrible. The top windows are literally inaccessible and cannot be opened. And hot air rises and it just gets stuck there and builds up forever. And then it's horrible. But I can pop open my window. But of course, the back faces straight onto the Holy Lands. Now, if you're in and around Belfast, you know what the Holy Lands are pretty fucking loud. And generally, full of screaming students and then sometimes police trying to rein them in. So, basically it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. And this actually seriously impacts all of you. Because the amount of fucking lost sleep and bullshit that I think both me and Matt end up having totally does get in the way of work. It's pretty rough. Anyway, back to World of Warcraft, which might actually be why everyone's here. Ember Court. I'm probably not going to go super deep into this, but basically there's a bunch of stuff where if you progress in your main, as an example, there's these friend of a friend quests that will unlock a permanent 30% increase to friendship gains with a guest. There's stuff that will, accelerate progress in your alt. So this doesn't massively impact your day-to-day gameplay, as Dakor says, but it is a really nice change for the people who do like the Ember Court, and also, this was not asked by the community, it's just a nice thing they did. That is nice, it does show they're actually examining their game, thinking about pain points, trying to alleviate them. I think, oh my god, it's actually god tier now that cold air is coming in, this is incredible.
It's pretty nice.
Oh, wow. It's like we locked in our pre-order when it was like, 22 degrees and 100% humidity today. So yeah, anyway, nice change. Nice change for the Ember Court. Now, somebody added me in chat asking about how to do your mouse cursor. So, well, actually, there's a link. I don't know, maybe you could spam that in chat if you have it handy, Matt. Or maybe if you just check out our add-on and weak aura video for Shadowlands, we included it there. But it's a weak aura that I think Dakor uses. I use it as well. It's called Ultimate Mouse Cursor. If you just Google that, or you go to wago.io, that's where you can go and find weak auras. Wago.io. So yeah, Ultimate Mouse Cursor is great. It will totally tide you over until the official option comes. Just that I'd say Ultimate Mouse Cursor does have a few more features. I mean, being able to have your GCD be on your mouse cursor, that's pretty swell, I think. Nice. But anyway, Blizzard adding in a scalable mouse cursor where you'll be able to change the size of the mouse cursor in the accessibility menu. And there's actually one feature that I would love for Blizzard to steal from macOS. And I'd love Microsoft to steal this. And maybe it is actually a thing on Windows. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe you can do it with like a
shaky thing.
Little plugin. Yeah. So you see on Mac, right? If let's say you're on a 5K display, you have a tiny little mouse cursor, and you've lost it. You're like, where the hell is my mouse? Well, you can just go, you just shake. If you shake the cursor in Mac OS, it actually gets larger so that you can easily find it. It's a really, really nice little usability feature. So maybe that would be a nice thing for Blizzard to implement in a future patch. But till now, there's a scalable mouse cursor. I think that'll be great. I mean, if you've got visual impairment, of course, that's great. But also, UIs can get cluttered, or even there can be loads of, combat texts, spell effects. I mean, not as many spell effects as like Guild Wars 2 or Final Fantasy, but still lots of spell effects. You can get your mouse cursor lost. And I think there's certainly been some, squeaky clench moments where somebody needs to use a Warlock portal. They haven't got the macro. It's not 9.1.5, so they don't have the new item. They've lost their mouse cursor, and they're like, oh god, I can't, where is my mouse? I need to use the Warlock portal. And then they actually find their mouse, and they're like, oh shit, there's people standing on top of the portal, and now I've missed it. Now I'm dead, and all of my friends hate me. Yeah. Now through an accessibility option, all our problems are solved. 100%. Yeah. Great. I mean, new game.
That's one thing that's actually really, really annoyed me as a healer. Maybe it's just because I'm getting, in the past, maybe since Shadowlands launched, I've been significantly less capable just as in existence, but I've been losing my mouse a lot more recently, and I actually think that the need to put your mouse over someone to heal them is like, I know that's going to be like you're never going to work around that because you need to target someone, and if you've got 10, 20, 30 people, you need to target the right one. But sometimes I just wish I had like mind control. So I could just like, instead of having to move my stupid, meat hand in the right way to get over someone who's about to die, I wish in my brain I could just like scream, lay on hands and go. So I was like, yeah. I think that there may be, it might be interesting for someone to work a way to work out some better usability for healing than that. Because obviously, if you're in like arena or something, you can have a bunch of macros. You could conceivably have like, one is your heal, shift one is to heal, one heal yourself, shift one heal your, arena 2, alt 1, arena 3 or whatever else. But, you're not going to do that for a 20-man raid. Okay. So I feel like that's one of the big usability issues, and I need to try to heal on in FF on controller and see what it feels like. But I feel like it would nearly be handier if there was some unique new way to actually control that outside of mouses. Instead of a mouse cursor. Maybe I'm just asking for too much. I'm asking for someone to, design something insane, but I don't know. Yeah,
no, I mean, hey, it makes sense to me. Might tide you over till the brain interface comes out and gets official house support. Yep. So another nice thing, Group Finder leaders can now browse groups. So there you go. If you've listed a group in the Group Finder, you'll be able to browse listings at the same time.
That's
truly is the year of our Lord 2021.
So I sort of saw that and I was like,
big changes.
I was like, that's pretty interesting. That's a decent quality of life for me, or for anyone who's trying to throw up a mythic group or an M+ group with your key, but you also want to keep an eye on if there's anything else interesting, because maybe you want to do a couple different ones. But PvPers apparently are extremely happy with this change.
Okay, well, this is a perspective I won't have had. So this is interesting.
Yeah, like it's hard to add a lot of color to it, but fundamentally it's just you've got really small groups. You don't have a lot of players, so if you throw up one, then you can't see if anyone else is showing up. So it's almost like you've got it's almost like you've got kind of like, I don't know how to say this, but it's some sort of analogy of boats crossing and never seeing each other. The kind of, two people are looking for each other, but they always look at the opposite direction kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's what it kind of looks like or could feel like. So I feel like this is one of those small changes that'll just be really, really good for for specific people that you kind of, again, little outside of the box. No one's been screaming from the rooftops, please let us browse listings. I mean, maybe one or two people have, but it's a kind of thing where like, okay, that's nice. You've clearly had someone sit down and think, what would make this game better? So yeah, happy to see it.
Good stuff. To basically finish off the news section, though, so there you go. Some more class tuning. Consumption deals 60% more damage. Special delivery, 100% more damage. Vanquisher's Hammer now increases the effectiveness of the Free Holy Power Spender by 25%. Dreadblade's initial strikes, 26% more damage, and immediately fills your combo points in addition to the current effects. Nether Portal's got a 30-second reduction in its CD, and Impending Victory's cooldowns have been reduced to 25 from 30, and it now heals 40% of your max health from 30. Just going to say, these are pretty significant buffs. These are not the classes that I play. Yeah. I have to assume that these are talents that are falling behind that they're now trying to bring up.
As far as I'm aware, yes. Obviously, like the ratio of Paladins or Necrolord are extremely low compared to the incredible options of Kyrian or Venthyr. Not too sure about Outlaw or Demo. I think the Demonology change is a bit weird to me. I get that it's as a buff, but 2.5 minutes seems like a weird timing for a cooldown. Yeah. Anyway.
Is what it is.
Yeah, consumption and special delivery I think are interesting though. Especially just that kind of buff. If you're buffing something by 100%, clearly, you may have wanted to look at it slightly earlier.
Yeah.
But consumption is actually an interesting one as well, because I mean, this was the same in BFA for me, but I liked using consumption as a blood DK when it was, the artifact ability. But for some reason, when it was added, it felt so awful. It felt so weak.
Well, that's what generally what happened. Like, you lost your artifact ability, and then you got, like, a weaker version of it as a talent, and it just didn't feel...
So that's the thing. It didn't bother me so much as a paladin, because Wake of Ashes still gave me less holy power, but it still gave me holy power. So it still felt like it had a utility. But consumption was supposed to be this big, massive swing that will be like, here you go, here's all your health back every 45 seconds, especially in AoE, loads of damage, big, I'm going to eat all of your blood. And then they made it a talent, and then it basically was tickling someone.
Yep. So, final thing then is, if you want the Alpaca Mount Molly, well, June Gorager Kralok is up again this week, so time to go kill it a bunch and maybe get the alpaca. And with that is the end of the Warcraft news for this week. There are other things we could talk about, though. I think going through that news was... how long have we been going for?
2 hours, 10 minutes.
Yeah. So a little bit of context. Definitely keeping this on the shorter side because basically my back is fucked. And there's a few times earlier in the week there where, I'd sat down for too long and this is like a back pain that I've had constant since last January. And I need to start properly doing the core strength and exercise and stuff like that. But just if I do end up sitting in one place for way too long, I'll mess myself up. And that will ultimately be, not good for the mission of making cool shit. So I'll kind of just go through this quickly. With the FF events, it's kind of tricky because, there's not a massive amount. And as much as I do wish I was there to get the F event, I did miss it. I've not played FF since the last stream. Because I have been busy in web design stuff and in planning things that you'll all see in 5 weeks. 5 weeks? It's still 5 weeks.
It's probably 4 weeks by now. I feel like you said 6 weeks about 3 months
Yeah,
ago.
no, I said 6 weeks like 2 weeks ago. I mean, okay, mid to late October. And there's just shit that it's non-negotiable. It has to be done by then.
Yeah.
But the channels still all need to run as they do. So, unfortunately, it's just a situation where I just need to do the work. It's like, tough shit, suck it up. So yeah, I don't want to mess up my back and make any of that shit any harder. Because it's all cool stuff and I don't want to do it wrong or, do it half-assed or anything like that. One thing we did want to call out, though, is there's loads of people who are really just excited about, or, maybe not excited, the word, see a lot of potential in, say, further customizations and things like that. So, yeah, there's the Lost Codex guys. They have released their Transmog Manifesto. There you go. And, it did really well. So, yeah, basically just saying, just calling out, some things about like the class silhouette stuff, how much does it really mean? What should we do? And going through a number of things that I assume it's Jesse who made the post. I imagine u/Lost Codex is Jesse. So anyway, yeah. So TLDR, class silhouette, the identification of one's in-game class based on their visual armor or weapons, is cited as a reason for out-of-date transmog limitations that I feel would be a huge, simple win for the community without breaking many RPG aspects within World of Warcraft. And then it's that thing where, Warglaives, right now they're locked to Demon Hunters. But there's loads of non-Demon Hunters in WoW lore that use the glaives, right? And that other weapon types shouldn't be limited in their class use when we play in an Age of World of Warcraft where there's like the cosmetic sets and the heritage armor, because of course the heritage armor just is what it is, right? Yeah. You can be a clothy and wear the heritage armor, and it won't exactly make perfect visual sense, will it, in terms of the silhouette? So if we're already playing fast and loose, basically, why not rip out some of the rules and just let people mix and match? So that is a big old Reddit post by Lost Codex that I think you guys should check out and perhaps let Blizzard know what you think. I think a lot of the stuff that that they care about and post about on Twitter is good shit. And like there's a lot of people who don't care about mogs and stuff, and that's totally fine. There's a lot of people who do. And the great thing about mogs is it's a multiplicative thing. It's actually my criticism of heritage armor. It's like you add the heritage armor, somebody gets it, and then, oh yeah, that's sort of it, they have it. But whenever you're freeing up like the restrictions in a system, and you have, loads of, basically, right, it's like you got loads of Lego bricks and a big bucket of bricks. And the more you reduce the rules of how you can use those bricks, the more ways you can use the bricks you've already got, and that could let people do cool new things. So, there you go. Maybe there's a few bizarre, technical like animation problems, things like that we're like not 100% sure of, but this is a great post. So we just wanted to highlight that and give him some of the old kudos. There's a few other posts as well. Then talking about an expanded TImewalking vendor, again from the Lost Codex, just of like, hey, there's other unused weapons and things, let's put them in. And that, generally speaking, is a thing that has happened for multiple World of Warcraft expansions, where there's gear that's used by NPCs, that's not like just hard baked onto the NPC's model, that is actually just gear that's put on an NPC, but it's not available to players. He's saying Tranquillin, Tabard, incomplete NPC, Vindicator gear, unused Sunwell weapon colors for High Elves, missing pieces from raid sets, any of the unused Amanai Bears, Nether Drakes, incomplete dungeon colors, and, showing off some pics of those things. And it's the sort of thing where, in my head, and this is what I really like, because, here's ideas for expanding the TBC TImewalking vendor. And a lot of this, of course, is you look at the Legion TImewalking vendor, and it's got some of that really cool Suramar gear that I think a lot of us would have been pretty hyped or pretty jazzed about getting in Legion, but we couldn't. That's now going to be there on the TImewalking vendor. And you know what? I could totally see myself going and trying to, not even for the item level, just getting that for the Mog appearance. because that's cool. That's a new thing to go and get. It's a reason for me to go do those those time walking dungeons. And then some examples for an expanded Wrath time walking vendor. This would be great stuff to see. So there are loads of unused Cavern of Time weapons. And I mean, man, remember when Transmog came out initially and we were all going fucking mad over this super cool Lordaeron shield? I still think this is one of the most cool shields in the game. I mean, come on. If you're, if this is a way like for you to have a shield in your hand, or sorry, a sword in your hand and 2 swords in your shield. Pretty cool. I just think it's a really cool design. That was like one of the first things I mogged whenever I could on a Paladin alt. But that's just a great point, There's Dalaran themed weapons. There's loads of unused colors for Argent Tournament ones. There's unused Frost Worms. There's missing ICC raid set colors. These things are like, as is pointed out, this is stuff that is literally just sitting in the game files. All that needs to be done is for it to be added to a vendor, right? And I just think that's great. Also, some ideas of, updated Paladin mounts, because people were getting a bit excited about the Paladin mounts after the Lightforge one that we covered earlier came out, where, there's stuff that exists, but, hasn't massively, been in game, or there's perhaps room for improvement in some things. Yeah, mount recolors as well. There's loads of unused colors. And here's the thing, right? The way that Blizzard does these mounts now is they give you a specific color from a specific rare, and that's that, and maybe get a different color from a different rare or a different color from a Paragon box. Back in the day, you get your Netherwing wrap, and the vendor would go, oh, you're exalted. Well, here is a set of mounts. Take whichever color you want. And you can just get all the recolors. Why do we not do that more? Right? Because, I mean, if you give me a big rep, it takes 20 days to get through. I can maybe grind it out a bit faster if I want to fly around in circles getting eggs or some shit. But then, you're telling me that at the very end of that, I can just choose whatever color from a list of them. I mean, that's pretty cool. And there is some really lovely mounts. So I think that'll be a cool thing to do as well. There's also heritage armor colors that just are, not implemented. The Maghar got 3 colors for their heritage armor, so why not drop other ones for the other races? That's another example. Things like let's get some new Nightborn eye colors. Just generally, I mean, this is, you can see I'm only halfway through this page. Maybe I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but this is just the community all coming together and saying, hey, it's cool you're doing these customizations, but we're going to open Photoshop and give you some additional ideas. And I just think that is neat. Another one, Transmog white only gear. I think a little bit more there would be good. That's a bit more in the context of the new starter gear that's coming out. Casual looking outfits. Yeah, Chrissy tweeted about that. At one point I did a tweet that it got so many likes. People really seem to be hyped at the idea. My idea was having basically having a casual item set that the game, whenever you go into perhaps a rested areas, like a town or city, Oribos, your Coven or something like that, and this would be a user toggleable thing, so you don't have to have it if you don't want it, but you just have regular Azerothian, streetwear, and you can unlock that, and then whenever you walk into the tavern, you're no longer going to be in full battle plate. And I think that would be a really cool way for the Blizzard designers to think, well, okay, what is the fashion style on Azeroth? What do these people actually wear when they're not in full battle gear? And the process of doing that, what would happen? Oh, more ways to reward players. Because then maybe you see somebody in their Brawler shirt, but it's you're not going to see the Brawler shirt because the Brawler's Guild shirt's going to be underneath a big bit of armor. Unless somebody's transmog to show it. But some sort of streetwear option could be good for that.
Certainly would be.
Some other things. There you go. Pilav wants parries gone.
Yep.
Heirloom changes being suggested by Mephisto, saying, are you really going to charge 12.5 grand times 8 for rested XP?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
They are. Gold Sync. Get rid of that Golden Fission.
Updates to the Trial of Style. It's
of course.
It's just that thing, they add stuff and then they just kind of don't really keep it up. And of course, Transmog is, for a lot of people, a lot of the game. The Trial of Style should be a lot more fully featured and accessible and stuff like that. Because why not? People are doing Transmog anyway. And then Annie wants Master Loot. I want Master Loot too, Annie. I just don't particularly know if that's something we're going to get.
I don't think we are.
But they're really... I don't understand it. Like, I don't know, man. I've never really had ninja looting being a problem. And, you know, just make it so that it's Master Loot for guild groups. Then all the people are going to be like, oh, but what about the trials? Look, if you're in a... If you're in a guild and treating people like shit, well, that's a good signal that maybe that's not the guild for you.
Yeah.
You know, because that's just a way of, you know, if they're going to be unreasonable about loot, then they'll be punished because they'll find it harder to acquire talent. But for the vast majority of guilds who are, you know, raiding in a static context, Master Loot would be really nice for our guild, as an example.
Yeah, it would be.
So there's just a bunch of community ideas we thought we would, you know, call them out for you because it's good stuff. So then for... Oh, is there a funny?
No, just honestly, I was literally just thinking about PLL's tweet about removing parry. It makes so much sense. Like, because you know, I'm not maybe the biggest fan in the world of playing with positionals in FF, like on Monk, for example. I feel it's a little bit too much, especially earlier in the game where our bosses do a lot of spinning around for no good reason. But, like... That's an experiment in World of Warcraft that they very much didn't continue with in any capacity, in any meaningful way at least, where you've got backstab. That's it. Everyone stands behind the boss by default because that's how you do to avoid parry. But it's so pointless. It feels like a holdover of the existing game having some more you know, elements from being in 2004, being more old school RPG, and I feel like it doesn't really make a ton of sense anymore.
Yeah.
In a world where, you know, bosses are designed in a way that they're all over the place and everywhere at once. Like, especially, you know, fighting Eye of the Jailer. What way does that work? Do you know how that works? Like, if you went in as a warrior tomorrow into Eye of the Jailer, would you think about standing behind the boss? I don't know if it doesn't parry.
Oh, yeah.
So it's stuff like that where I'm like,
Also visually, I mean, it's not like the Jailer's got like a sword to parry you with.
Yeah, so like that's a small thing, but that's a small change. We'll go, yeah, okay, that would make sense. Because that might be like a very, very small percentage of damage taken away from melee that they could be thrown back in. And then if they did that, if they removed parrying, then they could play around with positionals. Because I was just literally, I think it was earlier this week, I was just walking home, and as I do, I was thinking about what way could World of Warcraft introduce positionals in gameplay so melee isn't about standing still and headbutting the keyboard for the whole fight, as it sort of, you know, is at the minute. So it was just me thinking, you know, maybe if you had positionals for finishers or something like that, so, you know, Rampage maybe, you know, as long as you weren't facing them, maybe it would be significantly better. Or something, a little bonus, just something, anything. And I feel like parry being removed, but then adding them to the design might make a little bit more fun. Just because that's the fun part about playing any melee in like anything. It's why it's so fun in PvP as well. Because, you know, you wouldn't want to remove parry from PvP because that's a lot of what, you know, people, you know, move around behind others to avoid parries, to avoid blocks. And I think that stuff's really like... There's a fun bit of gameplay there that's core to the game and core to all games where you can move, and I feel like that's what they really needed, is just a little bit for melee to make them feel a little bit better, just a little bit better.
Fair enough.
I think maybe.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, I've historically mainly been a hunter, so
yeah,
it's not impacted me that much. But yeah,
yeah. And also, I did just, you know, I did just soapbox for a second there, but. Sure.
Yeah, hey, have at it. In terms of things, I guess there is some FF stuff. I mean, it's not. I mean, well, next letter for the producer is being announced. It's Friday, September 17th. So put that in your calendar. There is the Final Fantasy 14 and Final Fantasy 15 collab, where you get the Regalia type G4-seater mount. Costume as well. So some cool stuff there. Square Enix going to be at the Tokyo Game Show. October 3rd. That's gonna be so fucking big. On Sunday, featuring a stroll with Yoshi P, where producer and director Naoki Yoshida will be taking a leisurely trip to a random world in Final Fantasy XIV. So there'll be some cool little things there. Yeah, and then the most recent Tales from the Twilight is out as well. And additionally, actions have been taken against in-game RMT and other illicit activities. Which is fun, because it's almost as if in-game RMT in grey markets has been something you've been investigating for 2 weeks now.
Thanks to everyone who's reached out and contacted me. I really appreciate it. It's meant that, I intended to have the content finished this week for it to be, live in the next couple of weeks. It was delayed slightly. So, but yeah, no, thanks everyone for reaching out and telling me about your experiences with boosting, no matter where you lie on the spectrum, because that and RMT is certainly going to be a very, very interesting bit of content. Please look forward to it. I don't want to spoil any takeaways, but it's a very, very complicated situation and a very, how do I put this? Very important to some people.
Yeah, it's been fascinating. Like every few days, like you give me a quick update and like the, some recent conversation you had or some new finding or something, and it's just cool to have like numbers and perspectives that are a little bit more informed on an issue that people are generally aware of, but don't exactly know how it works. I'll definitely give the boosting community some credit. Like between the Galliwigs, which of course isn't a thing anymore, even the new ones, like the way that they've got, the assignment of like almost staff boosters or whatever. It's like they're running their own boosting Uber with all of these like Discord bots assigning people and doing things. Say what you want about boosting as a thing, but there's just a sidebar. There is just a little thing of human ingenuity that I very much respect and I think is very cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that's most difficult about preparing the content, is because I initially went in with my conceptions and the kind of what I thought I was going to be saying, and then I spoke to people, and then I was like, oh, hang on, okay. There was a whole bunch of perspectives I hadn't considered going into this that now I've been made aware of, and I can, talk about that in interesting ways. But the comparison to Uber is something I, directly have in the script, because it is very much a case of, that's why it's getting, at least visually, so much more prevalent, is because the people running and setting up and working for these boosting communities are genuinely doing a wonderful job of making the experience great. And that's it. That may be a problem.
They have to have good customer service.
Yeah.
Because they need the repeat customers.
Yeah.
So they actually have an incentive to make their boosting community run like fucking butter.
Yep, it is.
And yeah, like it might be in some ways not great for the game and maybe other ways okay, whatever. That's something we'll dive into in the video. But there is just that thing of like, you look at the operation and it's like, fair play. Hats off to you. You've made your Discord bots and all your systems and your setups, and it's pretty fucking impressive. I mean, how do you manage anything that requires that many people?
Well, apparently they found a way to do it.
Yeah, I just think that's, that, no matter what way we go, it's just cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
hard. I guess it's that thing. It is a hard problem to do that, especially when you're dealing with Blizzard's framework. But between Discord bots and whatever else they do, they found a solution, and it's always interesting when people find a solution to a hard problem.
Yep.
So I guess the final thing, this video, Odin is the absolute worst. Just to recap our videos for the week, barely anyone's watched this, which is very sad because I think it's a real banger video. John put so much blood, sweat, and tears into loads of cool custom scenes. I'm a bit sad that it's not done super well, and I know a part of that's because, like, Odin's, he was in 9.1, but he's not the most, in vogue character, right? But Odin's an absolute cock, and it's just fun when you kind of lay it out and go through it, and John he had a lot of fun, did cool things with that edit. So, yeah, if you want something to watch after for Warcraft, there's the Odin video. We did cut down our WoW schedule just this week and next week because one of our guys is off for a bit, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. We're trying to do things right. Over the news channel, though, lots of things. This was a fun one because Star Citizen is a hot topic. Very interesting to me. I mean, actually not as bad in the dislikes as it used to be. But this is an interesting one because there's a lot of people who I would say have an outdated... I mean, they have a perspective in Star Citizen that I would agree with. Were we still in the phase of early alpha or when it was the hangar module? But the game is a very different beast now. I think most people just aren't aware of that. But it is an interesting thing where, Star Citizen got under fire. The UK's ASA, Advertising Standards Agency or whatever, got a little bit involved. But not as bad as it initially looks when and that's why, in the title have the Is This Even Fair? Because all the Star Citizen people will have actually been totally, not totally fine, but they will have known what concept ship means, because it's literally been like that for the whole thing. But just an interesting thing. Then there was the whole Killing Floor situation, which we certainly... It was interesting. I think we tried to make this be a very bounded video, specifically in the issue of man tweeting controversial opinion. What does that mean when you're the CEO of a company? How do you stick to your own personal truth and, I guess live in a way where you can have self-respect, that you are standing by your own beliefs, but then also how does that mesh with the broader responsibility of, running a company? But of course, this is all about, his tweet is about the Texas abortion law, which obviously meant that, come on, it's talking about abortion on the internet. It's going to be we basically don't say anything about that, but let's just say it was a hot topic issue.
Yeah, it's not our place to, is it?
Yeah, no, it's out of scope for game industry news, and we try to keep things, decently in bounds because, our opinions shouldn't really massively matter because we should be trying to cover the story objectively.
Yeah.
I would say. Then Sony, all of Sony's fun with Horizon Forbidden West, and they got caught out trying to basically upcharge everyone $20. Now they're only being upcharged $10, and at least it's a bit more clear and a policy position has been set. Then, very interesting one with gambling in games. Basically a blanket gambling thing of 18 plus for Peggy, but there's a lot of nuance in it, and it looks good on the surface, but it might actually be damaging to games and miss out on what people actually take issue with when it comes to problem gambling-like behavior / gambling in video games. It usually pertains to loot boxes and the like. So, your Hearthstone, your FIFA Ultimate Team, that kind of thing. No Man's Sky. Nice little break to some fucking good news. No Man's Sky continues to be pretty fucking awesome with how they... stick with it. The game's actually now reached mostly positive overall on Steam, which is quite a feat considering how many very negative reviews they definitely deserved from their launch. Then also CD Projekt Red, making a very big commitment in terms of development staff for the repair of Cyberpunk 2077, as well as the new expansion that they're working on. So that was all pretty cool to get into. And the Mario conspiracy. If you want 40 minutes of Matt leading me through fraud in the classic, in the game collection community, alleged fraud anyway, but it seems all very sus, then that's a fun one. I was kind of like sitting there just be like, holy shit, it gets deeper and deeper. And the History Channel show Pawn Stars is even involved. Because of course, when you think about the History Channel, a pawn shop is obviously the first thing that comes to your mind.
I think that's just kind of the problem with the History Channel at the minute anyway.
Yeah. And then this is another one where I got myself into a little bit of hot water because I said, you know what? If you play a 2-hour long game or a 90-minute long game, enjoy it and then refund it because the Steam rules let you to, then fuck you. You're not willing to provide value in return for value. Get out of get out of games. We don't want you as a customer, which I do think. I really do think that if you're just going to, abuse the Steam refund system to get the product and then just get all your money back, that's not how any form of functioning economy works. That's just ridiculous, entitled, selfish behavior. And it was weird. I saw a lot of comments on that video. They're like, yeah, but games, AAA doesn't treat us right with unfair monetization practices. I was like, yeah, I agree with you. Why are you punishing a random indie dev for that? And there's also the issue there, too, with this, where, if Steam has this big systemic issue, it de-incentivizes the creation of shorter games. And you might say, well, I want good value for money with my games, or whatever. And then I'd say to you, well, in the form of not interactive media that we watch on a television, you've got TV shows that are long, you've got movies that are short. Some stories are best told as a TV show, other stories are best told as a movie. So you don't want to create a big disincentive to, against short stuff, because what if somebody has actually got a short story that's perfect for an interactive medium, but they then feel like they've got to unnecessarily pad it out to, sort of play against rules or something like that, or, a situation where they do just, do it perfectly, and then they get what some devs have reported, which is like a 25% refund rate. And that specifically is me talking about games with an overall, very positive review. Like this game in question had a 90% positive review and, reportedly a pretty high refund ratio. Mm-hmm. So, all interesting stuff. And certainly I'm noticing that as we just do what I think we think are reasonable opinions,
Yeah.
On a few of the, we're definitely getting a fair bit of pushback, which, is cool and interesting. I will listen and learn where appropriate, but overall, I'm not going to, we're not going to do the thing of just, always like actively tracking what the popular opinion is and then just following it, because, you're just going to be depressed if you do that shit. You're not going to be a real person. You're just going to be this like bizarre opinion following spouting machine. And I think whenever people see like, the mainstream media and they sort of think, ugh, get away, big news channel. That's why.
Yeah.
So yeah, all fun there. Lots of stuff in the news channel.
I mean, that's one of the things. One of the things we always set out to do in the news channel was to be as authentic as possible. To be, it just happens that a lot of our authentic opinions does line up with a certain subset of people. But it's interesting that we will just say what as close to the truth as is humanly possible that we're aware of.
Yeah,
as
of
far as
course.
stories, and then give our opinions on them.
Just no other way to do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's it in content. Actually, on the news channel, I'm pretty sure we've got videos queued up till Sunday. So, there's no WoW content until next Tuesday or maybe Wednesday. But there is news content through to Sunday. We might have a blip in Monday and then news back in Tuesday.
Yep.
So yeah, lots of content coming out, and that doesn't even include all the video game stuff that's going on and will be talked about decently soon, and all the associated YouTube content that I really do want to have going along with that as well, and then all of our longer term WoW plans. Because it's the boosting video is fun. We don't know if that'll be a 2-parter yet.
I'm
thinking 1-parter.
I'm definitely thinking 2-parter.
2-parter, okay.
It'll
cool.
be difficult to split up in a way that's satisfying, because I want to lead with the stuff that's, lead with the interesting stuff. But there's also a lot of, I think, background information that is important for people to have, but also very, very good to discuss at the same time. So I would, if it is going to be a 2-parter, it would very much be a 2-parter. I would suspect, instead of being 30 to 40 minutes one video, it would be like 2 20-minute videos back to back, maybe one day after the other, something like that. I'm just kind of thinking because...
well, even from the production perspective as well, the amount of the capacity we have just in terms of minutes of video that we can edit per day.
Yeah, no, it is it's definitely very, very long. I think by what we would consider normal kind of word count to length ratio, we're looking at about, if you're a little bit more slow and deliberate in delivery, you're looking at about 25 minutes at the minute, maybe 25 to 30 minutes. And there's a substantial amount of stuff I haven't added yet. So basically you've got the choice. Do you want to do 2 25-minute videos or like an hour-long one? I'll see what I can do, but it's definitely long.
It's the sort of thing where if we split it into 2, then we're able to I mean, it depends because we have to do what's best for the story, but I think it seems like in your head there is a part 1, part 2 where the split makes sense. Yeah. And that does mean that we can get the part 1 out to you sooner, which is probably ideal, assuming it works as a standalone, and it seems like it will.
Yeah.
See
about that over the next couple of days, but yeah.
Nice. It's been interesting. I think you guys really find the boosting work that the guys have been doing to be fascinating, because I certainly have. Whenever I've been, whenever I've been filled in on what's been going on, I've checked out the research docs and stuff. It's fucking cool. It's also nice that now we have a little bit more time to do. I'm not going to say, it's biting journalism, but it's a little bit of investigation, bit of research, bit of talking to people, finding out what's up. Learning those perspectives that you don't get as an onlooker to a scene. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I mean that's that's basically the thing. There are 2 distinct ways I could have went into some sort of boosting video, and number 1 would have been just to throw have a discussion with you, have a discussion with Dakor, throw our sort of combined opinion and thought into script, off we go, with surface level sort of research. But instead, we've been, thanks to how, everyone supports us, we've got the time to do it properly. So I do have, people important and knowledgeable in the scene. I can take a couple of hours out of the day to talk to them, get, work out some stuff for them, figure it, ask them a bunch of questions, get official statements in return, work through them all in the video. So it's, instead of it being, here's an opinion piece. It's closer to an actual investigation in the story. I mean, it's not some like. Not some
We have
extreme-
commissioned a full comprehensive investigation. We have built an investigative committee to look into the feasibility of research. No, it's not that, but it is a bit closer to that than we usually are able to do, which is cool and way more satisfying than just being like, oh, boys and dear everyone, I've seen so many boosting posts in the group finder, and that makes me angry. Which, you know, we could have done, and it might have done okay, but we could also take like 15 times as long and do the job properly and actually be able to surface some information that you guys might actually find to be, you know, novel and stuff you maybe didn't know, which is tell you what we want to do.
Yep.
So,
I mean, I've definitely got at least this to say. No matter what your take or experience with boosting will be, there will be something in it that will surprise you, for sure.
see, I don't even, look, I don't know what the something is. He's clickbaiting me as well. Bastard, man.
Yep.
Oh, man. Anyway, right. I think it's time for us to finish up and take off.
Yep.
Because, yes, I can feel the back brewing.
Yeah.
And I can feel the back brewing. We've, you know, the show has been showed. And, well, also I do have to be up early to, yeah, the old 5G shot in me. It'll be very fun. So, you know, I'll try not to be completely out of commission during the weekend and hopefully get something useful done.
Yep. I have nothing quite that important to do, but Ina is... Nina, my internet currently is doing an unarchived karaoke stream, so I'll be watching that straight after.
Good shit.
Alright, so...
Oh, man. All right. So, thank you. Thank you for watching. Fun stream. Actually, some nice, fun topics to get into. All things that tell me that the thing to do is to stop playing WoW now, because 9.1.5 will come out, and if our guild still... You know, our guild doesn't have much motivation to raid right now, but I know we all do still want Curve. So I'm thinking what we do is, you know, 9.1.5, that comes out. We can do some Legion TImewalking. Maybe there's a Mage Tower involved. I mean, certainly they're working on it seems.
Yep.
You know, that's an environment where I think we're all going to be a lot more interested and engaged, because it's always sad when you're raid logging.
Yeah.
You know, when you log into your character and it's literally just in a boss room somewhere, and it just kind of reinforces to you that really the raid's the only thing keeping you there. It at least seems like in patch 9.1, at least during its 2 launch weeks, there's going to be a bit of that spice back in the game. We'll be able to revisit some of those Legion dungeons, have a bit of fun. For some reason, like, I miss Darkheart Thicket. I always like that dungeon. It's short, it's sweet, it's just got some nice, you know, nice crispy trash pulls, some sort of nice, simple, clean bosses. I don't know, I've always messed with me. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, on all things except for the dragon. The amount of people I've seen die to that dragon's breath is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I can't, oh man, I want to do Neltharions again.
Oh, fucking Neltharions lair, yeah, man.
Yep.
That'll be nice there. We'll get back to Legion.
Yeah,
maybe that'll tide us over till 9.2 sort of brings the real thunder.
I hope so. Well, we'll see what it has to bring.
Hopefully it is good.
Yeah, hopefully talk about that soon.
Because, yeah, as much as there's times where admittedly it can be like a bit enjoyable to be like, oh my god, look at what they've done, this is all terrible. Ultimately, what we want is for 9.2 to be a banger. And, you know, I do actually want WoW's trend to go, you know, from this to this to this, because if it does that, I'll be way more happy and I'll have more game to play. It'll be fun. So, you know, there's that. But, okay. Oh, yeah, we turned the super chats off. It's the sort of thing, if we don't think we can do super chats justice, we don't want to sit here and accept a bunch of money and not be able to provide, you know, good quality and discussion, you know, in return for that. I would say, though, a few people did drop us some super stickers, and I should definitely bring up the old...
yeah, just a couple of those new member names you might not want to read out.
A couple of those, maybe not. Actually, yeah, no, a couple of those maybe not, so I'll perhaps read those out later. But yeah, no, just for the super stickers, no, a big thanks to Tyler, Matty B, and Itali Berkovitz as well.
So thank you very much.
Cheers, lads, and whew, yeah, man. You'll know why this has been a busy it has been and will be a busy while in about 5 or 6, well, mid to late October. So if I say 5 to... I'll keep on saying 5 to 6 weeks, because that's what it is in my head. And then it'll turn out it's like a week away, and I'll pretty much lose my marbles. But anyway, yeah. Right, enough of a big extended outro. Thank you for hanging with us tonight, everyone. Yeah, take care. We'll have some cool shit in the channels for you soon next week. So